Chapter 121. Xian Yao was silent for a while. Then she said, "He's an idiot." I looked at her in confusion. Idiot? I don't think so. Why do you think he's an idiot? Xian Yao turned to look at me. He obviously likes me, but he's hiding it. He doesn't dare to say it. Don't you think he's an idiot? He has his own concerns. That's why he doesn't dare to say it. Xin Yao lay down again. She looked at the ceiling and said, "I don't care about his status or status. The main thing is whether or not he is sincere to me. Although I have never been hurt emotionally, but the sisters by my side have been hurt too many times. I have also seen too many of them. I don't want to be like them, giving their heart, giving their body, and in the end not only did they not get anything, but also made themselves sick. Why bother?" I felt that Xin Yao's words were reasonable. For an outstanding girl like her, there weren't many who could keep themselves clean. I turned to look at Xin Yao and said, "Then how do you feel about him? It can't be that you like him because he likes you, right?" Xian Yao smiled. "That's not the case. But right now, I don't think there's anything wrong with him. I just have a good impression of him. After all, we've just met. If I say that I like him or that I love him, it would be so fake. I want to get to know him better. If we really fall in love with each other, then I'm definitely willing to be with him. Plus, he's your man, so I'm not worried." I sighed and looked at Xin Yao and said, "Actually, Su Rui's background is quite clean. His father was wrongly imprisoned, his mother died early, and he has a younger sister who was seriously ill. However, after undergoing surgery, she's much better now. Moreover, he's now by my side and has a fixed job, and his income is quite considerable. I've decided that after I divorce your brother and return to the Red Tea Club, I'll arrange another house for him. Although there's still a certain gap between him and you, it's still quite good. I can't do much for him, that's all I can do for him." "That's all I can do." Sister-in-law, you're good to all of us, but you're not good to yourself. I've already said that I'll consider it. He's still under observation, so there's no rush." Xian Yao looked at me and acted cute. "How can I not be anxious? I don't even know how long it will be before I can see you again after the divorce. I'm so worried about your personal problems. I also hope that you can find a good man who can take good care of you and protect you. Su Rui may look like a child, but he's very mature inside." Xian Yao's expression suddenly became serious. Looking at me, she said, "Sister-in-law, you're going to abandon me." I saw that she suddenly became serious, and I suddenly became nervous. I shook my head and said to her, No, I just can't see you every day. I don't know if you're doing well without me." Sigh. Xian Yao hugged my arm and said, "Sister-in-law, how about I move to your house and live with you? That way, I can always be your shadow and pester you. Even if you annoy me, I won't leave you. What do you think?" I looked at Xian Yao and said, "Silly girl, you still have to stay here and take care of Mom and Dad. There's also that grumpy brother of yours. This family needs you to maintain. Although I really want to be with you, considering the current situation, the Duanmu family still needs you. Don't let someone else destroy this family." Hearing my words, Xian Yao immediately understood who I was talking about. She nodded and said, "Of course. My biggest goal now is to drive her out of this family. It's all because of her that so many things have happened. I really don't like her more and more." I suddenly remembered that Suri had already moved in. I didn't know how he was doing. I looked at Xian Yao and said, "Right, I asked Suri to move in. He'll stay here until I'm officially divorced. Then, he'll leave with me. I don't know how he's doing. Let's go and take a look." Hearing me say that, Xin Yao's face suddenly turned red. She said in a low voice, Is that appropriate? Won't it be awkward?" Seeing Xian Yao's reaction, I concluded that she also had feelings for Suri. I smiled and said, "It's okay. Let's go. We can use this opportunity to get to know him better." Xian Yao thought for a moment and then nodded. "All right. Let's go." Then, the two of us sat up on the bed, tidied up, and walked out of the room. We arrived at the door of Suri's room. We knocked for a while, but no one answered. We didn't know where he had gone. I saw the housekeeper cleaning the room. I walked over and asked, "Auntie, did you see the boy living here?" The housekeeper thought for a moment and then nodded. "I saw him. He just came downstairs and bumped into Master. They should be in the study now." "Okay, thank you." Exai Yao and I looked at each other. Then, we walked downstairs to the study. As soon as we arrived at the door of the study, we heard Duanmu Tochio's voice from inside. "Ah, Xiao Rui, your massage is so comfortable. After I got sick, a lot of work was delayed. As a result, I'm under a lot of pressure. You massaging my shoulders like this really relieves me a lot. You're under a lot of pressure. I've been here to give you massages for the past few days. You've been relieved a lot. If you need anything in the future, you can ask Xian Yao to find me. I'll immediately come and help you." Then, Suri's voice came. Duanmu Lixiong laughed out loud and said, "Is that so? That's great. I didn't feel comfortable calling a masseuse outside to give me a massage. K.R. is busy, Xian Yao's hands aren't strong enough, and I don't want my wife to work too hard for me. This is great. Fortunately, I have you. Otherwise, I would have gotten sick from overwork." "No way. You're still very young and your body is so good. How could you get sick just like that?" Duanmu Tochio laughed again. "Good boy, I heard that you're pretty good. It's really good that Boss Lung has a subordinate like you. What do you think? Do you want to consider coming to my Kurosawa? You can be my personal bodyguard." When I asked this question, I suddenly became very nervous. That's right, this was indeed a test. Suri answered, "Thank you, President Duanmu, for your kindness. But right now, I only follow Miss Leng. I also swore that I would never betray her. So, I'm really sorry, President Duanmu." Duanmu Tochio smiled. "It seems that I don't have this good fortune. But I really do love talents. You're such a good subordinate. I really want to take you in." Chapter 122. Before I had time to react, Xian Yao pushed open the door to the study. I had no choice but to follow her in. I saw Suri massaging Duanmu Tochio's shoulders. When they saw me and Xian Yao barge in, they were stunned. Suri stopped what he was doing. When he saw Xian Yao, he actually blushed. Xian Yao pursed her lips and looked at Suri. She probably saw Suri's blush. Suri turned his head away in embarrassment. Xian Yao then looked at Duanmu Tochio and said, "Father, how could you steal him? That's not right." Duanmu Tochio looked at Xian Yao and smiled. "Haha, father is just chatting with Suri. But I really like him. He's multi-talented, has a good personality, and most importantly, is very loyal." Xian Yao walked to Suri's side and listened to Duanmu Tochio praise him. She suddenly pulled Suri's arm and walked past him. She said to him, "Even if you like him, you can't steal your sister-in-law's man." She turned to look at Suri and gave him a meaningful look. "Isn't that right, Suri?" Suri's face turned even redder. He immediately understood the meaning of Xian Yao's gaze. Then he looked at Duanmu Tochio and said, "President Duanmu is also very good to me. He takes care of me a lot. Sometimes, I feel like President Duanmu is as kind as my father. No matter what, I still have to thank President Duanmu for his good intentions. I've decided to follow our family's eldest miss for the rest of my life." Hearing Suri's words, Duanmu Tochio's face bloomed with happiness. He looked at Suri and smiled. "Really? Is he really that kind?" As he said that, Duanmu Tochio touched his face. Xian Yao curled her lips and said, "Father, he just gave you a few compliments, and you're already so happy. You weren't even this happy when my brother and I complimented you before." Duanmu Lixiong smiled and said, "Good daughter, I'm liking Su Rui more and more." Xian Yao's eyes turned as if she had thought of something. She looked at Duanmu Tachio and said proudly, "Father, if you like Suri so much, why don't you help Suri solve a problem? What do you think?" Duanmu Tachio nodded. "That's not a problem. Tell me, what is it?" Xinyao looked at me and then at Su Rue. She then looked at Duanmu Lixiong and said, "Father, Su Rue's father was framed and sent to prison because of an unjust case. I heard that he didn't have a good time there. Su Rue also has a younger sister who just recovered from a serious illness. The whole family is in tatters. If you really like him, then help him save his father." Hearing Xian Yao's words, Suri and I were stunned. Neither of us had expected that Xian Yao would ask Duanmu Tachio to help her. Suri pulled Xian Yao's arm, hinting that she shouldn't mention it. Xian Yao looked at him and said, "What? Isn't this what you've been worried about?" Xian Yao turned to Duanmu Tachio and said, "Father, although it's difficult to do, it should be a piece of cake for you." From the tone of Xian Yao's voice, it sounded as if she was forcing Duanmu Tachio to help her. I hurried over to Xian Yao's side and whispered into her ear, "Girl, how can you say this to our father? Besides, your attitude isn't right." Xian Yao looked at me, hinting that I shouldn't say anything. Duanmu Tachio thought for a moment, then looked at us and said, "If you know that it's difficult to do, then why do you want me to do it?" Suri looked disappointed. He looked at Xian Yao and said, "President Duanmu's words are reasonable. Xian Yao, please don't mention it again." Xian Yao didn't answer. She looked at Duanmu Tachio and said, "Father, you will definitely do it." "Oh, you're that sure?" Duanmu Tachio looked at Xian Yao in disbelief. Xian Yao walked over to Duanmu Tachio's side and whispered a few words into his ear. Duanmu Tachio suddenly stared at Xian Yao and asked, "Really?" Xian Yao looked at Duanmu Tachio with pride and nodded. Duanmu Tachio thought for a moment, then looked at Suri and said, "This isn't difficult. Tell me what happened." Suri looked at Duanmu Tachio and said, "Here's what happened. My mother passed away when I was young, and my sister and I were raised by my father. He didn't have a degree, so he worked as a hired thug to support the family. Later, my sister's health got worse and worse, and she contracted a serious illness. She needed more and more money, so I dropped out of school and started working as a hired thug with my father. In order to get my sister treated, he started taking on some dangerous jobs, but he always kept it from me. One time, he and a few of his brothers were on a mission. During a scuffle, one of my father's brothers used a knife to stab a person in front of him, seriously injuring him. Because he wasn't careful, he missed a step and fell down. The back of his head hit a nail protruding from the wall, and he died on the spot. The person who injured him with the knife was a relative of the boss at the time. They colluded to frame my father. At the time, the police investigated and found my father's fingerprints on the knife. Although my father denied that he didn't kill him, the evidence and witnesses all pointed to my father. In addition, the police colluded with the boss at the time, so my father was locked up in prison. Duanmu Tachio nodded and thought for a moment. "Now that you mention it, I remember. A few years ago, something like this happened here. At the time, it was very fierce, but the public opinion was quickly suppressed. It seems that this person who can control both the black and white sides is not simple. Little Rue, do you remember who that person was? What was his name?" Su Rue nodded and said, "I don't know what his real name is. I only know his nickname. I won't forget this name even if I die. I only know that the people around him and in society all call him Brother Hay." "Who? Black Brother? How could it be him?" When Duanmu Tachio heard this name, he instantly became serious. Xian Yao looked at Duanmu Tachio and said, "What's wrong, Dad? Do you know him?" Duanmu Tachio calmed himself down. He sat in front of the desk and said with a serious face, "The rumor is that Black Brother is called Ji Bai. He was once the most ruthless person in our city's underworld. He had many murders, robberies, smuggling cases, and human trafficking cases. But for some reason, even though he was like this, he still had a way to not get caught." Xian Yao thought for a moment, then said to Duanmu Tachio, "Dad, are you close to him?" Duanmu Tachio shook his head. "No, I've only met him a few times. We're not close." Chapter 123. Xian Yao glanced at Suri, then looked at Duanmu Tachio. "Father, is this a difficult task?" Duanmu Tachio thought for a moment, then said, "It's not that difficult. It's been a long time, so Ji Bai probably doesn't remember this matter. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. President Duanmu, I'll have to trouble you. If it's too much trouble, or if it's too troublesome, there's no need. I don't think my father would want to trouble everyone." Suri's tone was calm, but I could feel that he really wanted his father to be rescued. Duanmu Tachio looked at Suri. "Don't worry, it's not a difficult task." At this moment, Xian Yao stood up. She glanced at me and Suri, and I knew it was time to leave the study. The two of us also stood up. Xian Yao said to Duanmu Tachio, "Father, you go ahead. I'll leave first." Then, the three of us walked out of the study. As soon as we left the study, Suri let out a deep sigh. Xian Yao saw his relaxed expression, then gently patted Suri's back. "You don't have to be so nervous when you see my father." Suri sighed, then looked at Xian Yao. "I'm not nervous. I just think that President Duanmu is too nice. I didn't expect that he would owe him a favor for someone like me. I feel like I've gone overboard." I looked at Suri and said, "Don't think like that. You've treated father with sincerity, and I believe that father also treats you with sincerity." Xian Yao smiled at Suri. "That's right, that's true. Don't mind it too much. Relax. My father is very good, right?" Suri helplessly covered his head. "Whatever you say. I'll do as you say." Hearing Suri's tone, I was surprised. He usually didn't speak so gently. I nudged Suri's arm and said softly, "Hey, I don't remember you speaking like this before." Xinyao looked at the two of us and asked, "What are you guys talking about?" Suri suddenly shook his head and said loudly, "Nothing, nothing, nothing." Looking at Su Rui's funny appearance, Xinyao and I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Su Rui saw us laughing very happily, so he also laughed. Moreover, he laughed very happily. While the three of us were having fun, I glanced out of the corner of my eye and saw Duanmu K standing at the top of the stairs, looking at us with a serious face. Seeing him, my smile completely disappeared. I stood at the door of the study and looked at him without moving. Suri and Xian Yao saw that I stopped laughing and looked in the direction I was looking at. They understood why I had suddenly become serious. Suri pulled Xian Yao's arm and said softly, "Let's go out. It's not appropriate for the two of us to stay here." Xian Yao looked at me worriedly. I patted her shoulder and signaled for them to leave. Suri took Xian Yao and left the living room. I still stood at the door of the study and looked at Duanmu K at the top of the stairs. He was still looking at me with a serious expression. I didn't know what he was thinking. However, I understood that he must be very unhappy to see the three of us laughing and joking. I sighed and walked up the stairs. I walked to Duanmu K's side and glanced at him. Then, I walked to the bedroom. I walked into the room and stood by the window. Duanmu K followed me in and closed the door. I didn't look at him but just stared outside the window. My mood was very complicated. Outside the window, Su Rui and Xinyao were talking and laughing as they walked into the garden. It seemed that the two of them were having a good conversation. Thus, I was relieved. After all, the two of them had feelings for each other. Duanmu K walked to my side and looked in the direction I was looking. He also saw Suri and Xian Yao. He looked at them for a while and then said, "Do you plan to let Xian Yao and Suri be together?" He looked at me, his expression still serious. I didn't look at him. I said softly, "As long as two people love each other, are happy together, it's fine. There's no need to consider any external factors. Love is more important than anything else." I didn't know why I said that, but after I said it, My mood was very complicated. Perhaps it represented my inner thoughts. Duanmu-ke looked at their backs and said to me, "Indeed, you're right. Love doesn't need any extra distracting thoughts, but it's only limited to the person I like. If it's someone I don't like, I can't pretend that I like her very much." Hearing Duanmu-ke say that, I knew very well that he was saying it for me to hear. He was telling me that he didn't love me at all. I sneered and looked at Duanmu Quebec. What a coincidence. My point of view is very similar to yours. But now, it doesn't matter to me. The person I used to love doesn't love me anymore, and the person who loves me, I'm slowly accepting his love for me. This kind of feeling, although complicated, is the best ending for anyone. Duanmu-ke looked at me and said softly, "So be it. There's nothing wrong with you feeling that way. Anyway, there are only 10 days left. I hope you can live the rest of the days comfortably." I turned and glanced at the bedroom I used to live in. I felt very uncomfortable. I looked at Duanmu-ke and said, "Okay, that's it. I'm leaving." I smiled at Duanmu-ke and then walked to the bedroom door. Unexpectedly, Duanmu-ke suddenly grabbed my arm. I didn't understand why he did that. I turned and looked at him. "What's wrong? Let go. It's not suitable for me to stay here." Duanmu-ke didn't let go of my arm. He looked at me and said, "There are still 10 days left. At least for these 10 days, you will still be my wife. I understand that you are afraid that I will do something dangerous to you, but I promise that I won't do it again." Duanmu-ke's eyes became very sincere. I let go of his arm and looked at him. I looked at Duanmu-ke and said, "It's not about that anymore. I have feelings for you. After what you did before, I completely gave up. I didn't know that you would become like this. Of course, I didn't know what you would become in the future. I don't want to gamble anymore. I thought I won the gamble, but I lost, and I lost so badly." Duanmu-ke didn't answer. He reached out and grabbed my arm, then pulled me into his arms. I tried to struggle, but Duanmu-ke held me tightly in his arms. Chapter 124. "Don't move," he said softly. "Let me hold you for a while." Hearing him say that, I stopped struggling and leaned into his arms. Then, I stayed still and felt his heartbeat. He held me like that for a while. Then, he suddenly lifted me up and put me on the bed. I suddenly felt shy and didn't know what to do. Duanmu-ke climbed onto the bed and lay next to me. He stared at me without blinking. I didn't know what he was thinking. I thought for a while and asked, "That's not good. Since we've decided to get a divorce, I don't want to sleep with you in order to avoid unnecessary trouble." That was one of my thoughts. However, what I was most afraid of was that he would hurt my child. Duanmu-ke was still looking at me. "Just for a while," he said. I didn't know why, but I wasn't used to hearing him speak so calmly. Perhaps if he had been fierce with me, I would have argued with him. But now that he was so calm, I didn't know how to deal with him. Duanmu-ke held me in his arms and quietly closed his eyes. I looked at his face and felt that it was so familiar. However, he was no longer the one who loved me. I quietly looked at Duanmu-ke for a while. I guessed that he had fallen asleep. I raised my hand and gently touched his face. Although I said that I didn't have feelings for him, I still couldn't let go of him. My love for him had reached the point where it was unforgettable. I touched Duanmu-ke's face and looked at him. "Why do I still love you so much when you've already treated me like this? What can you do to make me forget you completely?" I thought that Duanmu-ke must have fallen asleep. He didn't answer me. I looked at Duanmu-ke, tears falling from the corners of my eyes. I said softly, "You don't love me anymore, right? If you loved me, you wouldn't have treated me like this. Or were you just playing along with me from the beginning? Did you never love me?" This thought has been tormenting me for a long time. Ever since you lost your memories, your attitude towards me has really made me wish I was dead. But there's nothing I can do. No matter what you do, I still love you. I sneered and said softly, "Right? I'm very cheap. Sometimes, I really don't know what I'm doing. Just as I was caressing Duanmu K's face and talking to myself, Duanmu K suddenly opened his eyes, scaring me. I quickly pulled back my hand that was still caressing his face and tried to break free from his embrace. But I didn't expect that Duanmu K would hug me so tightly that I couldn't escape. My face was burning, and I couldn't look at him directly. Duanmu K looked at me with a serious face. I'm not paying attention to you, but you're talking very happily. Hearing Duanmu K say that, I really wanted to find a hole to hide in. I tried to break free from his embrace again, but Duanmu K didn't have any intention of letting go. He just lay there and looked at me with a serious face, watching me move around. Duanmu K sighed and then said to me, "All right, don't move." Duanmu K continued, "I couldn't help but do some extreme things to you. Of course, I admit that I did all of this, but it also included the things I did when I lost my rationality when my temper flared up. However, none of this was my intention. When I found out that I married you because of my parents' arrangement, although I didn't ask, I knew in my heart that we definitely had relations. Moreover, I could see that your feelings for me were very deep, but I did so many things to hurt you. I also knew that I wasn't a good person, but I couldn't fall in love with you. Although there were several times when I fell asleep, I would always dream of you, dream of happy scenes with you, but when I woke up, I found out that these things didn't exist. Of course, I was very disappointed, and your resistance towards me became stronger and stronger. I also couldn't understand what had happened between the two of us in the past, so the conflict grew bigger and bigger. I didn't know why, but when I heard Duanmu K say that, I felt like he was looking for all kinds of excuses for himself. I sneered and softly said, "What's the point of pushing everything away?" I pushed Duanmu K away and lay down in front of him, looking at him. "I'm not pushing the responsibility away, I'm just telling you the truth. The truth is that you don't treat me as a human being. The things you did to me, are those things a husband should do? Yes, we agreed to a peaceful divorce, but what about you? You treat me as if I'm not close to you. One moment you're especially good to me, the next moment you're fierce to me. One moment you're holding me in your arms and lecturing me, the next you're throwing me aside and leaving me bruised all over. What do you want me to do? I'm not a toy that you can play with when you want to play with, and then throw aside when you don't want to play with me. I'm a human being. A real human being." I was very angry. I sat up on the bed and stood by the bed, spitting out all the words that had been bottled up in my heart for a long time. Duanmu K stood up from the bed. He walked past me and opened the wardrobe. It was full of women's clothing, and they were all new. I looked at Duanmu K with a puzzled expression. I didn't understand what he meant by showing me these things. Duanmu K turned to me and said, "These are compensation for you. Back then, because I lost my mind, you didn't even have a decent piece of clothing. Take it as my compensation." Then, Duanmu K took out a gift box from a drawer in the wardrobe. He placed it on the bed and looked at me. "Open it and take a look." I didn't understand what Duanmu K meant, but I still reached out and opened the gift box. After I opened it, I was shocked. Inside the gift box was a very beautiful white dress. It was very similar to the one Duanmu K had given me for my birthday. I looked at Duanmu K in confusion. Duanmu K looked at me and said, "At that time, I couldn't find that dress. Later, Mom told me that I had given it to you. It was a very exquisite dress, and it was custom-made. So, I found a designer and made a similar dress for you. But I think this one looks better. The previous one was too simple." My heart was no longer calm, and the tears in the corners of my eyes couldn't stop flowing down. I held the dress and looked at Duanmu Quebec. I thought to myself, is he remembering the past? Or is he apologizing to me? Just as I was puzzled, my phone suddenly rang. I took it out of my pocket. It was a call from Han Hao. I lifted my head and looked at Duanmu Quebec. He also looked at me with a puzzled expression. He asked softly, "Who is calling?" Chapter 125. I put the phone on silent and didn't answer. I looked at Duanmu K and said, there's no one. Who is it? Duanmu K's tone suddenly became stern. I put the phone behind me and looked at Duanmu Quebec. I shook my head and said, there's really no one. Don't worry about it. I stepped back, but Duanmu K suddenly walked in front of me. He reached out and snatched my phone. I tried to snatch it back, but he held it high. I looked at him and said angrily, give it back to me. Duanmu K looked at me but didn't say anything. He looked at the phone, which was still ringing. It seemed Han Hao hadn't hung up. Duanmu K picked up the phone. Han Hao's voice came from the other side. Shaoli, are you okay? I didn't hear from you all day. I was worried, so I called you first. How are you? Xiao K didn't bully you, did he? Duanmu K looked at me, his eyes full of anger. He said into the phone, Han Hao, it's me. There was no response from the other side of the phone. Han Hao probably didn't expect it to be Duanmu K who answered the phone. Duanmu K saw that there was no response from Han Hao's end. He said, Han Hao, why are you looking for my woman? Hearing Duanmu K say that, I felt very uncomfortable. I reached out to snatch the phone from Duanmu K's hand. I looked at Duanmu K and shouted, give it back to me, Duanmu K. Duanmu K glared at me and pushed me. I lost my balance and fell to the ground. Han Hao seemed to hear it on the other side of the phone. He was worried and said loudly, Shaoli? Shaoli, are you okay? Duanmu K, what did you do to Shaoli? Duanmu K looked at me fiercely. Then, he said into the phone, Han Hao, 8 o'clock in the evening at the suburban garden. I'll wait for you. Before Han Hao could answer, Duanmu K hung up the phone. He threw the phone in front of me. I picked it up and looked at Duanmu Quebec. I asked, Duanmu K, why did you do that? Why did you ask Han Hao to come out? Are you going to fight? Do you think Han Hao will fight you? You're his good brother. Duanmu K squatted down. He raised my chin and stared at me fiercely. Tears glistened in the corners of my eyes. I wanted to avoid his gaze, but I couldn't escape his evil clutches. Duanmu K's eyes were fixed on me. I couldn't escape. He didn't say a word. He lowered his head and kissed my lips. I panicked. I reached out and pushed Duanmu K away, but Duanmu K held me tightly in his arms. I couldn't move and let him kiss me crazily. Duanmu K gradually slid to my neck. He kissed my neck fiercely. I was in so much pain that I closed my eyes tightly. After a while, Duanmu K finally let go of me. He looked at me with a cold smile, then let go of me. He walked past me, stood at the door, and suddenly stopped. Then he said to me, 7:50, I'll be waiting for you in the living room. You have to come with me. If you don't, then don't blame me for not warning you if something happens to Han Hao. After saying this, Duanmu K pushed open the door and walked out. I lay on the floor, tears streaming down. I didn't know what I had done. Why did Duanmu K do this? I took out my phone and dialed Han Hao's number. After the call went through, I softly called out Han Hao's name. Han Hao. After calling Han Hao's name, I cried even harder. When Han Hao heard my voice, he worriedly said, Shaoli, are you okay? Why are you crying? Don't worry, I'm coming to find you. I shook my head hard and said to Han Hao, don't. Han Hao, don't come here. Also, don't go tonight. Promise me, don't go, okay? Han Hao didn't answer. He was silent again. I was worried. I cried and said, Han Hao, promise me don't go. After a while, Han Hao said to me, silly, I'm fine. Don't worry. Since Duanmu K called me, I can't not go. Don't worry, we won't have a conflict. But Shaoli, you have to promise me, don't go to the suburban park tonight. Promise me, okay? I couldn't control my tears. I cried and said to Han Hao, I don't want to. Han Hao, I don't want to. You can't go. Duanmu K will hurt you. Promise me. Han Hao gently said to me, silly, okay. I promise you. Don't cry. It's not convenient for me to go see you today. When tomorrow is over, I'll go see you. Be good, I miss you. Hearing Han Hao's gentle voice, my mood improved a lot. I hung up the phone and stood up. Even Han Hao was so optimistic. How could I be so negative? However, I still had to go with the Douanmu Quebec. No matter what the Douanmu K did to Han Hao, I had to do my best to help Han Hao fight against the Douanmu Quebec. Thinking about it, I still decided to keep this matter a secret from everyone. If too many people knew about this, it wouldn't be a good thing. I tidied up my clothes, pushed open the door and walked out. Coincidentally, I bumped into Xinyao holding Su Rui's arm. They were talking and laughing as they walked up from downstairs. When we bumped into each other, both of them froze when they saw me. Xinyao quickly let go of Su Rui's arm. Their eyes wandered and their faces turned red. Xinyao looked at me embarrassedly and said, "Ah, sister-in-law, you came out? Where are you going? I'll go with you." Seeing Xinyao speak incoherently, I smiled and whispered to her, "You two strolled around until now?" I looked at their shy faces and understood. I looked at Xinyao and said, "You two are together now." Xinyao's face turned even redder. She grabbed Suri's and my hands and ran into her bedroom. She turned around and closed the door behind her. Xinyao pulled me to sit on the chair. Then, the two of them stood in front of me. Xinyao tugged at the corner of her clothes. Suri reached out and hugged Xinyao tightly. Xinyao snuggled into his embrace like a little bird. The two of them were so sweet that they blinded my eyes. I sat on the chair and looked at Suri. "Suri, tell me the truth." Suri raised his head and looked at me. He hugged Xinyao tightly and sighed. "Miss, I'll tell you the truth. I'm already with Xinyao." After saying that, Xinyao covered her eyes with her hands. It seemed the news was true. Looking at their happy faces, I was truly happy for them. I looked at Suri and asked, "What's the situation? How did you two get together after going out for a stroll? It seems the two of you are developing quite quickly." Chapter 126. Su Rui scratched his head and said to me, "After we went out, I saw that Xinyao was unhappy. I asked her what happened, but she didn't say anything at first. Later, we talked about our past relationship and our attitude towards relationships. At that time, my heart was in a mess, but I felt very sorry for her. I felt that she had suffered a lot in the past, so I really wanted to protect her. Then, I don't know why, but I couldn't hold back and told her all my thoughts." I turned my head to look at Xinyao and said, "And then? Did the girl just agree?" Xinyao put down her hands and pouted. "Sister-in-law, don't ask. I'm so shy." Xinyao's face turned even redder. She looked very cute. Suri continued, and then Xinyao threw herself into my arms. I was so scared that I didn't know what to do. I held her in my arms, and then Xinyao started crying. I didn't know why she was crying, but my heart ached for her. Xinyao told me what she was thinking, and then what? I asked. Suri's face turned even redder. And then, I kissed Xinyao. Xinyao pouted. That was my first kiss. Suri looked at Xinyao. That was my first kiss too. I couldn't help but laugh at their display of affection. I looked at Suri and Xinyao. That's good. As long as you two are happy together, that's good. Suri, don't bully my little Xinyao. I love her the most. Suri nodded. He glanced at Xinyao, then looked at me. Young miss, don't worry. I won't run away anymore. No matter what happens, I will be with Xinyao. Nothing can stop me. I smiled at the two of them. That's good. You two have to be happy. You have to be happy. Xinyao walked in front of me. Holding my hand, she asked softly, Sister-in-law, how are you and my brother? Just now, I saw him walk out with an ugly expression. Did he make things difficult for you again? I sighed. He didn't make things difficult for me. Instead, he became a bit gentle. He even apologized to me for what happened before. He even prepared a closet full of clothes, saying that he wanted to compensate me. Then why did he still have that expression? It shouldn't be. I can't understand him now. He's becoming more and more different from the person I used to know. Although I wasn't in China for a while, I still kept in touch with him. I even bought him a lot of good things that can't be found in China. Although we haven't met, it's definitely not like this. He's so cold. It feels like he doesn't even want me, his little sister. Xinyao pouted and said unhappily. I sighed again and said, when the two of us were in the room, Han Hao suddenly called. I didn't dare to pick up the call. Duan Mu Ke saw that I was acting strangely, so he snatched the phone away from me. Then he quarreled with Han Hao for a bit, and then he left with a dark face. It's my fault, I didn't think too much about it. I should have just picked up or hung up. Gij Han Hao is really too much. How could he be so unlucky? What did my brother say to him? He couldn't have asked him out to fight, right? Hearing Xinyao say that, I was shocked. They really were brother and sister. Xinyao understood Duanmu Ke very well. Just as I was considering whether or not to tell them the truth, Suri saw my hesitation. He looked at me, then hugged Xinyao and said, Okay, you don't need to worry about this. Your brother isn't a kid anymore. He won't fight for no reason. Suri gave me a look. It seemed he already knew what I was thinking. I nodded and looked at the two of them. It's getting late. Suri, shouldn't you go see your sister? Xinyao jumped out of Suri's embrace. She looked at me and said, Yeah, I forgot such an important thing. Then she ran to the dressing table and rummaged through the drawers for a long time. She pulled out a few bottles of cosmetics and smiled. Great, I finally found them. I promised my sister that I would bring some cosmetics for her. I almost forgot. I looked at Xinyao and asked, You're so close to his sister already? Suri said, Yeah. I only found out today when Xinyao told me. As long as Xinyao has time, she goes to the hospital to visit my sister. She often brings good food and toys for her. I don't think I'm as good a brother as she is. Xinyao made a face at Suri and said, Your sister is much cuter than you. Okay, let's go. The visiting hours will be over soon. Sister-in-law, let's go. Then Xinyao pulled Suri and left. Looking at their happy faces, I felt very happy. I glanced at my watch. There were only 15 minutes left until the fight between Duanmu Ke and Han Hao. I should pack up and go downstairs. I decided to wear light clothes. If the Duanmu Ke and Han Hao really fought, it would be easier for me to stop them. I walked out of Xinyao's room and returned to my own. As expected, Duanmu Ke wasn't there. I opened the wardrobe and looked at the wardrobe full of clothes. My heart didn't feel good. I took out a set of sportswear and put it on. Then, carrying my bag, I walked out of the bedroom. I walked downstairs and saw Duanmu Ke sitting on the sofa in the living room. I walked over to him. He raised his head and looked at me. Then, looking at his watch, he said, You're right on time. Let's go. Duanmu Ke stood up and walked to the door. I followed behind him without saying a word. Duanmu Ke's car was parked in the courtyard. After we got in, Duanmu Ke looked at me and said, You're dressed so casually. Are you going to help me fight Han Hao, or are you going to help Han Hao fight me? I turned my head and looked at Duanmu Quebec. You're overthinking it. I just think it's appropriate to go to the park dressed like this. Duanmu Ke suddenly put his face in front of mine. I was so scared that I leaned back against the seat and stared into his eyes. Duanmu Ke looked at me and said, Cold glaze, don't overthink it. I'm just talking to my brother. I called you to be a witness, so you won't say that I hurt your beloved. Hearing Duanmu Ke say that, my feelings were complicated. I felt like I'd been caught red-handed in bed. Could it be that Duanmu Ke was jealous? I looked at Duanmu Ke and sneered. Could it be that you're doing this because you're jealous? Duanmu Ke's expression suddenly became very strange. He moved away from my face and sat in the driver's seat. He calmed down for a while, then started the car. "Let's go," he said softly. Chapter 127. Duanmu and I didn't talk the whole way. We drove very fast, and before 8 o'clock, we arrived at the entrance of the park. Duanmu and I got out of the car and waited for Han Hao to arrive. Not long after, Han Hao drove to the entrance of the park. He got out of the car and stood in front of me and Duanmu. I could see that although Han Hao's expression was calm, his heart must be very complicated right now. Duanmu looked at Han Hao and reached out to pull me into his arms. I was shocked and turned to look at him. I reached out to push him away, but Duanmu held me tightly in his arms. His eyes were fixed on Han Hao. Han Hao clenched his fists and tried to calm himself down. He looked at Duanmu and said, "Xiao Ke, why did you hand me over?" Duanmu glanced around. At this time, there were a lot of people walking around. He looked at Han Hao and said, "It's not convenient to talk here. Let's go inside and talk." Then, he turned around and walked into the park with me in his arms. Duanmu held me tightly. He walked very fast, and I could only run to keep up with him. Han Hao followed behind us. I turned to look at him. Han Hao shook his head at me, indicating that I shouldn't struggle anymore. His eyes were very gentle. I understood Han Hao's meaning and gave up struggling. I glanced at Duanmu. His expression was still very calm. The three of us walked to an open space where there weren't many people around. Duanmu stopped and pointed to a bench. He looked at me and said, "You go sit there." I didn't understand Duanmu meaning. I looked at him and said, "What did you say?" Han Hao walked in front of me. He took off his jacket and put it on my shoulders. He said, "Go sit there. We two men have something to talk about." Even Han Hao said so. I could only nod and agree. I glanced at Han Hao, hoping that he wouldn't be too impulsive and argue with Duanmu. I quietly walked over to the bench and sat down. The distance wasn't too far. I could just hear the conversation between the two of them. The two of them stood facing each other. Those who knew would think that the two of them were good friends. Those who didn't know would think that the two of them were gay friends. Duanmu stood in front of Han Hao and looked at him. "You seem to care a lot about my woman." Han Hao smiled. He looked at Duanmu and said, "You don't cherish her, but someone else will. You can control who your heart belongs to, but you can't control who other people's hearts belong to." Duanmu took a step forward. He got closer to Han Hao's face and was about to kiss him. Duanmu looked at Han Hao and said, "It looks like you're going to steal my woman?" "She's not your woman. You've already decided to divorce her." "Oh, right. There are still 9 days left. In other words, you and she will still be husband and wife for the next 9 days. Han Hao didn't back down. It looked like he was determined to make things clear with Duanmu. Duanmu looked at Han Hao and said, "Aren't you afraid that I'll go back on my word and not divorce her?" Han Hao clenched his fists. He glared at Duanmu and said, "Don't tell me you want to continue torturing Xiaoli? She's just a woman. If you have any problems, come at me." Duanmu looked at Han Hao and laughed coldly. "As long as I don't divorce her, Cold Glaze is my woman. I can do whatever I want to her. It's none of your business. If you really want what's best for her, then stay away from her. I'll treat you as my brother. I won't bicker with you." Han Hao suddenly reached out and grabbed Duanmu collar. He stared fiercely at Duanmu and said, "Xiao Ke, I'll treat you as my brother. You don't love Xiaoli anymore, so you can't stop me from pursuing her. I can give her what you can't give her. From the moment you said you wanted to divorce her, I've already treated her as my woman. If you don't want to divorce her because you want to torture her, then I'd rather not have a brother like you." Han Hao's words might have angered Duanmu. Duanmu reached out and punched Han Hao in the face. Han Hao loosened his grip on Duanmu collar and staggered back 2 steps. Blood trickled out of the corner of Han Hao's mouth. He turned his head and looked at Duanmu. He threw himself at Duanmu K and the two of them began to wrestle. I was scared by the two of them. I quickly stood up and ran to their side. I didn't know how to stop them, so I could only shout, "You two, stop fighting! Stop fighting!" But no matter how much I shouted, they didn't let go. Seeing that the two of them were getting fiercer and fiercer, I couldn't stop them. I saw an opportunity and stood between them. Although I tried to push them away, they were too strong. I couldn't stop them at all. At that moment, Duanmu K reached out and punched Han Hao. Han Hao was already covered in bruises. I shouted, "Be careful!" As I stood in front of Han Hao, Duanmu K's fist landed on my chest. I fell on Han Hao's body and fell to the ground with him. Duanmu K was dumbfounded. He didn't expect that I would stand in front of Han Hao and that he would hit me. Han Hao reacted and quickly hugged me. He gently touched my face and said, Xiaoli, are you okay? Xiaoli, how are you?" Han Hao looked at me worriedly, his eyes full of tears. I felt a sharp pain in my chest and spat out a mouthful of blood. I didn't care about the pain and reached out to touch my stomach. Then, I raised my head to look at Han Hao and said, "Quick, take me to the hospital." Han Hao immediately understood my meaning. He picked me up and ran towards the exit. When he passed by Duanmu K was still standing there in a daze. When he saw that Han Hao had carried me away, he finally reacted and hurried to catch up. Han Hao carried me and rushed to a nearby hospital. Duanmu K also followed. When they arrived at the emergency room, the doctor looked up at the two of them and asked, "Which one of you is the patient's family member?" "I am," the two of them said in unison. Han Hao raised his head and glared at Duanmu Quebec. The doctor looked at them impatiently and asked, "Who is it?" I looked at the doctor and said, "You should tell me." The doctor looked at me and nodded. She looked at Duanmu K and Han Hao and said, "You two go out. I have something to say to the patient." Han Hao looked at the doctor and said, "Can I stay with you?" The doctor glared at Han Hao and said word by word, "No." Han Hao and Duanmu K had no choice but to leave the room. Chapter 128. After they left, I looked at the doctor and asked, "Doctor, is there something wrong with me? Or is there something wrong with my baby?" The doctor looked at me unhappily and said, "You know you're pregnant? How can young people be so crazy? Not only do you not care about yourself, but you don't even care about your baby. Are you still a parent?" After listening to the doctor's lecture, I couldn't say anything. I just lowered my head like a child being lectured. The doctor looked at my dejected appearance and said, "Okay, don't think too much. I just checked you. There's nothing wrong with the baby. It's healthy. You, on the other hand, are too weak. You need more nourishment. Not only for yourself, but also for the baby." I nodded and agreed with the doctor. The doctor looked at me and covered me with a blanket. "Have a good rest. If you need anything, just ring the bell. I'm leaving." Then, the doctor walked out of the room. Not long after the doctor left, Duanmu K and Han Hao entered the room. They stood in front of us and looked at me without saying a word. Their expressions were very serious. Not long after, the door was pushed open. Xinyao and Suri rushed in first, followed by Duanmu Tachio and Xiao Fengya. My parents were the last to come in. Everyone was very worried and surrounded my bed. Xinyao's eyes were full of tears. She lay beside me and looked at me. She said worriedly, "Sister-in-law, what happened to you? Why did you go to the hospital again? What did the doctor say? Who did this to you? Sister-in-law, how could you be so careless?" I looked at Xinyao helplessly and said, "You're asking me so many questions. I don't know how to answer." Suri sighed and pulled Xinyao aside. "Okay, Milady's body must be very weak right now. You should let her rest." Then, Suri pulled Xinyao to the side. Xiao Fengya also came over and sat next to me. She gently stroked my hair and asked, "Xiaoli, what happened to you?" "I just received a call from Duanmu K," and it made me worried. Did Duanmu K make you angry again? I turned to look at Duanmu Quebec. His face was still dark, but there was a hint of awkwardness. I looked at Xiao Fengya and smiled. Mom, I'm fine. The doctor just checked on me. I'm fine. Don't worry. You and Dad don't need to worry. Xiao Fengya took my hand and sat on the edge of my bed. Take good care of yourself, she said softly. I'll make some soup for you when we get home. It'll be good for your health. Your body is too weak. You probably suffered because you just had a miscarriage. I smiled and looked at Xiao Fengya. Thank you, Mom. Sorry to trouble you. I turned my head to look at my parents. Both of them had very serious expressions. It seemed that the fact that I was sent to the hospital again made them completely unhappy. I looked at Xiao Fengya and said, Mom, I have some things that I want to talk to my parents about. Can I trouble you to take everyone back first? Xiao Fengya looked at me. It was clear that she didn't want to leave. Xinyao also didn't want to leave. Duanmu K saw the awkwardness. He looked at Xiao Fengya and said, Mom, you take Dad and Xinyao and leave first. I'll wait here. If there's anything, I'll contact you. Xiao Fengya stood up and looked at Duanmu Tochio. Duanmu Tochio nodded. Then she turned to me and said, Xiaoli, you must take good care of yourself. We'll be leaving first. Then she left with Duanmu Tochio. Xinyao ran to my side and kissed me gently on the cheek. Then she pulled Suri and reluctantly left. Duanmu K looked at me and said, I'm going out. Call me if you need anything. He glared at Han Hao and then left the room. Han Hao walked to my bedside and covered me with the quilt. Then he pulled my hand and said, Xiaoli, I'll also go out first. I'm going to buy you some food and daily necessities. According to the doctor, you might need to stay here for 2 more days. You can talk to Uncle and Auntie first. Then, Han Hao kissed me gently on my forehead. He turned around, said goodbye to my parents, and left. Only my parents and I were left in the room. After Han Hao left, my mother walked to my bedside. She held my hand and softly asked, Lier, how are you? How could something like this happen? When Han Hao called me, I couldn't believe that you were in the hospital again. What happened? I told them about the quarrel between Duanmu K and Han Hao. After listening to my story, my father fiercely slapped the armrest of the sofa and said angrily, This is too much. The Duanmu family is becoming more and more lawless. My daughter, it seems that your decision to divorce was correct. No matter what, your father didn't understand you before. It seems that I was wrong. Now, I support your decision. My mother turned around and glared at my father. She said softly, Your daughter is like this, and you still care about your own interests. Why don't you care about your daughter? My mother turned to look at me and said, Lier, don't think about it. What did the doctor say? Is there any problem with your body? Is there any problem with the baby in your belly? I shook my head and held my mother's hand. Mom, I'm fine. Don't worry. I'm fine. The baby is fine too. Don't worry. The doctor said that my body is very weak and I need to rest. I need to eat and drink. My mother's eyes were moist. She tightly held my hand and said, Lier, your mother's heart hurts. I didn't think that you would suffer so many grievances in the Duanmu family. Your father and I both feel sorry for you. It will take a few more days for you to escape from this abyss of suffering. But these few days are enough to make my heart ache. Mom, it's okay. Don't worry. I'm fine. I'll be fine in a few more days. Seeing my mother cry, my heart also felt very uncomfortable. My mother wiped her eyes and looked at me. By the way, Lier, I just saw Han Hao's behavior towards you. It didn't seem as simple as an ordinary friend. Could it be that you two are already together? I didn't dare to look at my mother. My eyes drifted. I didn't know how to tell her. My mother sighed. She held my hand and said, Lier, Han Hao is a good child. But you confirmed your relationship with him so early. Does Duanmu K know? Did all these things happen today because he knows you two are together? I gently nodded and looked at my mother. He already knows. I don't know what he was thinking. He suddenly asked Han how out to fight. I couldn't stop him no matter how hard I tried. I didn't expect that when the two of them fought, the one who got hurt was me. Chapter 129. My mother sighed. Isn't it too early for him to know about this? You two are really too much. You only have a few days left. Why can't you wait any longer? At this time, my father glared at me. To be honest, Han Hao is a good kid. But his family, status, and background, I don't think he's good enough for you. I pursed my lips. Dad, feelings and status can't be measured together. I really like Han Hao, and I'm willing to be with him. But I need time to heal the wounds Duanmu K has inflicted on me. My mother stroked my hair. Lier, do you still love Duanmu K? I lowered my head and didn't say anything. My mother hugged me. Poor child, she said. This is the most heart-wrenching feeling. My father looked at me. How about this? I'll find some time to talk to Han Hao and see what he thinks. You rest well. Your mother and I will go back first. I haven't talked to my daughter enough. Why are you in such a hurry to go back? Besides, if we let her stay here now, when she's discharged from the hospital, will she have to go back to the Duanmu family? I don't expect them to treat our daughter well. What if she really hurts her body? What if she really hurts the child? What do you want me to do? My mother's eyes reddened again. I quickly reached out and wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. My father looked at my mother very calmly. That won't happen. There are only a few days left. Just hold on a little longer. If we choose to force a divorce at this time, it will be very disadvantageous for the Red Ming Hui. My father turned to look at me. Lier, he said. It's been hard on you. Just stay here for a few more days, and everything will be fine. I looked at my father and smiled. I understand, Dad. After my mother said a few more words, my father pulled my mother out of the room. I was the only one left in the large room. I lay on the bed, the wound on my chest still aching. I couldn't take it anymore. I turned over and reached for the glass on the bedside table. But just as I was about to reach for it, a hand reached out and held the glass in front of me. I looked up. It was none other than Duanmu Quebec. I reached out and took the glass. He held my shoulder and propped up my pillow, making it easier for me to lean against the headboard. I took a sip of water and looked at Duanmu Quebec. Thank you, I said. Duanmu K reached for a chair and sat on the bedside table. He didn't say anything, but just stared at me. Duanmu K looked at me with a gentle gaze. I was getting more and more confused about what he was thinking. Seeing that he didn't intend to speak, I had no choice but to break the awkward silence. I looked at Duanmu K and asked, "Why did you come back?" Duanmu K still didn't answer. He looked at my face, then shifted his gaze downwards. He stared at the spot on my chest where he'd hit me. I blushed instantly. I was too embarrassed to ask, so I turned my head away to avoid looking at him. Duanmu K suddenly reached out and unbuttoned my shirt. My breasts were exposed in front of Duanmu Quebec. He stared at my breasts. I quickly covered them and glared at him. "What are you doing?" He didn't say anything. He stood up, grabbed my hand, and moved my arm away. He continued to stare at my chest with great pleasure. I struggled with all my might, but he held my hand tightly. My face flushed red, and I shouted at Duanmu K, "What are you doing?" Duanmu K looked at me and let go of my hand. I quickly buttoned up my shirt. I stared at Duanmu K, and he stared back at me. Duanmu K pointed at my chest and said, "It hurts, doesn't it? It's bruised." I was stunned. Duanmu K had unbuttoned my shirt to see where he'd hit me. I calmed down a little. Still clutching my chest, I said to Duanmu K, "It's okay. It doesn't hurt anymore." The doctor said that I can be discharged in 2 days. I glanced at him and turned my head away. It's one step closer to the date of your divorce. You won't be upset when you see me. Duanmuke looked at me. He lowered his voice and said, I suddenly made a decision. I don't want a divorce anymore. As long as I give up on the divorce before the deadline, you will still be my wife. Hearing Duanmuke say that, I was shocked. I looked at Duanmuke and asked, You can't take back what you've said. Are you treating our relationship as a joke? When I didn't want to give up on you, you chose to give up on me. When I gave up on you, you came to pester me. What do you mean? I've told you before. I'm not a toy. Duanmuke stood up and supported himself on the edge of my bed. His face gradually came closer to mine. I stepped back, and he came closer. When he was about to touch my face, Duanmuke reached out and held my chin. He looked at me and said, Don't think that I don't want to divorce you because I have feelings for you. It's because I don't want you to be with Han Hao. Instead of wishing you happiness, I'd rather break you up. Hearing Duanmuke say that, I was angry. I reached out and slapped him, but I didn't use too much strength. Perhaps it was because my body was too weak. Duanmuke looked at me and sneered. He looked at me and said, Cold glaze, I don't want anyone else to have what I can't have. I also won't let anyone else have what I don't want. I pushed Duanmuke, but because my body was too weak, my forehead started to sweat. My face was pale, and I collapsed on the bed. Duanmuke saw that something was wrong with me, so he quickly put me down. He ran out of the room and shouted for the doctor. Not long after, the doctor came. It was the same doctor who had treated me at the beginning. She glared at me and gave me a simple checkup. Then she looked at me and said meaningfully, Good, it's nothing serious. She turned and looked at Duanmuke, who was standing to the side, and said loudly, The patient's body is too weak. She needs to rest. Don't do anything to agitate the patient. Give the patient enough time to rest. Then, she glared at Duanmuke and left with the nurse. Duanmuke stood there and looked at me with a serious expression. It seemed that my sudden situation had frightened him. He stood to the side without saying a word. Although he looked calm, he was probably very conflicted inside. I looked at him standing there like a block of wood. I sighed and looked at him, saying, You should go back. It's getting late and I'm tired. I want to rest for a while. Chapter 130. Duanmuke looked at me and nodded. You should rest. It's okay to come home a few days later. Then, he left. Looking at his back, I didn't know why I felt so sad. Duanmuke suddenly didn't want a divorce. Wasn't this the result I wanted? If he didn't want a divorce, would I still love him as before? But why did he suddenly appear in my life when I was ready to let go? Did he just want to torment me? Unconsciously, I fell asleep. I didn't know how long I had slept, but I smelled the fragrance of chicken soup. I sniffed it, and it smelled real. It didn't feel like a dream. I opened my eyes and saw Han Hao sitting next to me. He was fiddling with 2 or 3 thermal lunchboxes on the table. I sat up on the bed, rubbed my eyes, and looked at him with a sleepy face. When Han Hao saw that I had woken up, he gently touched my face and kissed my forehead. He smiled and asked me, You're awake. Did you sleep well? I saw that you were sleeping very soundly, so I didn't dare to disturb you. I rubbed my eyes and looked at Han Hao. How long have you been here? Why didn't you wake me up? Han Hao gently stroked my hair. I've been here for a while, but you were sleeping. I asked the doctor. He said that you were very weak and needed to rest, so I didn't wake you up. Auntie sent someone to bring you pork rib soup. Auntie Xiao personally cooked chicken stewed with mushrooms for you. I also asked the housekeeper to prepare millet congee and some refreshing dishes for you. Look, there are so many delicious dishes. They will definitely make up for all the nutrients you've lost. I looked at Han Hao and smiled. It's too much. I can't finish it all. Eat with me, I said softly. Han Hao turned his head to look at me. He leaned over and kissed my forehead. He looked at me and said, "Silly, not only do I want to eat with you, I also want to sleep with you. The hospital is such a scary place. I really don't feel safe leaving you alone. I will always be with you. I have already prepared a change of clothes and toiletries. I have already contacted Xinyao. Tomorrow, she and Su Rue will be in charge of bringing us food to ensure that we won't starve to death. I am prepared to stay by your side. I'm going to stay by your side." Looking at Han Hao's funny face, I laughed. "This room isn't big. There's no place for you to sleep." I looked around the room. It was true that the emergency room was small. Although it was a single room, the conditions were still bad. Han Hao scooped a bowl of soup and handed it to me. He pointed at the sofa next to him. "I'll just squeeze in there." I looked at the two-seater sofa and then looked at Han Hao's 1.83 meters height. I shook my head helplessly. "It's too cramped. There's only so much space." Han Hao reached out and stroked my hair. "Silly, I'm fine. Don't worry. As long as I can stay with you, I'll do anything. I'll even sleep on the floor." Han Hao looked at me with a bright smile. Looking at his smile, my mood improved a lot. Han Hao handed me another bowl of congee. Looking at me, he said, "Be good, eat more." I took the bowl Han Hao handed over and began to eat in big mouthfuls. The two of us chatted as we ate. Finally, we finished dinner. Han Hao was definitely a clean freak. He cleaned up the entire room. I sat by the bed and looked at his busy figure. I suddenly felt very happy. This was how two people lived their lives. After Han Hao finished cleaning the room, he looked at the time and saw that it was still early. He wanted to take me to the garden behind the hospital for a walk. At first, I refused, but he insisted. I had to listen to him. Han Hao was afraid that I would be tired, so he borrowed a wheelchair from the nurse's station. He pushed me and took me to the park. When we arrived at a deserted place, Han Hao stopped. He sat on the stone bench across from me and adjusted my jacket. He was afraid that I would freeze. Han Hao stretched. He looked at me and said, "Xiao Li, are you cold? Do you feel any discomfort?" I looked at Han Hao and shook my head. He suddenly thought of something. He looked at me and said, "Xiao Li, I forgot to bring you some water. I'll go get it for you." Then, Han Hao hurriedly ran to the hospital building. After I watched him enter the building, I could only patiently wait for him. After waiting for a while, a little girl came in front of me. She held a rose in her hand. She walked in front of me and said, "Excuse me, are you Xiao Li Jejie?" I looked at the cute little girl and smiled. "Yes, I am. Who are you?" The little girl handed the rose to me. She looked at me and said in a sweet voice, "Xiao Li Jejie, a handsome brother asked me to give this to you. Sister, take it. I'm leaving." The little girl put the roses in my hand and ran away. While I was puzzled, two more little girls ran over and said the same thing. They also put the roses in my hand. Then, the third, the fourth, the fifth. When I was holding a big bouquet of roses in my arms and couldn't take any more, a spotlight shone on the lawn in front of me. I was stunned. Then, a figure slowly walked out of the shadows and into the spotlight. It was Han Hao. He had changed his clothes and was wearing a handsome suit. He stood in front of me with a serious expression. I stood up with the flowers in my hands. I didn't know what was going on. At this time, romantic music came from somewhere. Han Hao slowly walked towards me. The spotlight followed Han Hao's figure. Han Hao stopped in front of me and looked at me with a warm smile. Han Hao reached out and gently stroked my face. His eyes were full of affection. I looked into Han Hao's eyes and said, "What's going on?" "Just now, a few little girls came to give me flowers. They all said that you asked them to give it to me. What's going on?" Han Hao looked at me and smiled. He gently kissed me on the forehead. He looked at me and said, "Xiao Li, maybe it's too early to say these things, but I can't wait any longer. I can't wait any longer, so I've decided to say it all today. Looking at Han Hao's serious face, I touched his face and said, "What's going on? Just tell me." Han Hao took out a box from his pocket and opened it. It was a diamond ring. He knelt on one knee and held the ring in front of me. He looked at me and said, "Xiao Li, marry me." Chapter 131. I looked at Han Hao in shock. I didn't know if I should accept him or not. Han Hao saw my hesitation. Still kneeling on one knee, he looked at me and said, "Xiao Li, I know it's still too early. I also know that you're still Duanmu Kei's wife, but I've fallen deeply in love with you. It's getting harder and harder for me to leave you. I know that if I propose to you now, you'll definitely have some misgivings. But please believe me, I'll definitely be by your side until the day you're truly willing to marry me." Han Hao looked at me with gentle eyes. Looking at him, I couldn't stop my tears from flowing. I looked at him and reached out to take the ring from his hand. Then, I helped him up. I looked at Han Hao and said, "Thank you for loving me without holding back. I also feel your love for me. I can't promise you anything now, but I'll definitely be with you." I reached out to touch his face. "Silly," I said softly, "it must have cost a lot to make such a big scene." Han Hao's face instantly turned red. He smiled and looked at me. "No, after my friends heard about our relationship, they were very supportive. They said they wanted to help me plan a proposal. I originally wanted to refuse. I know you don't like these hypocritical things, but they insisted. I couldn't refuse. I didn't expect you to really accept." I looked at Han Hao with a smile and said, "Hypocritical? I think it's not bad." I reached out to Han Hao and looked at him. "Put it on for me." Han Hao was stunned. He took out the ring and put it on my finger. The size was just right. I looked at it carefully and asked, "How did you know what size I'm wearing? This is too perfect." Han Hao looked at me and said, "If I tell you, you can't hit me." Looking at his sincere expression, I smiled and nodded. Han Hao said softly, "When you were asleep, I took the ring you always wore. I asked the shop assistant to help me choose according to the size of the ring. There just happened to be a suitable one. I thought the design was pretty good, so I ordered it." Han Hao pursed his lips. "It definitely can't compare to the wedding ring Duanmu Kei gave you. You wouldn't dislike it, would you?" I looked at Han Hao and smiled. I threw myself into his arms and hugged his neck tightly. "No, I like it very much. You know me very well. You know what kind of ring I like. Most importantly, you gave it to me. How could I not like it?" Han Hao hugged me tightly. He stroked my hair and said, "Xiao Li, I really feel very lucky to have met you. You're willing to be with me and accept me. You know, I was really afraid that you would reject me and push me aside. But now, I'm relieved. You won't leave me. This is more worth it than anything else." I leaned into Han Hao's arms and listened to Han Hao's heartbeat. I felt at ease. The two of us stood on the lawn in each other's arms. The people around us gradually dispersed, leaving only the two of us. I suddenly felt that even the air was filled with the smell of happiness. Han Hao was worried that I would freeze, so he brought me back to the ward. He went to get water and wash up. I was bored in the ward, watching TV. Just then, my phone rang. I took it out and saw that it was Duanmu, Quebec. I hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hello, what's up?" Duanmu Kei's voice came from the other end of the line. "How are you?" It seemed that he was worried about my health. I answered softly, "I'm fine. I feel much better. I'm going to rest soon." There was no sound from the other end of the line. I waited for a while, but there was no reply. I had no choice but to call out softly, "Duanmu Kei? Duanmu Kei, are you still there?" Not long after, Duanmu Kei sighed. Then he said, "I found the divorce agreement we signed back then." I suddenly remembered that Duanmu Kei and I had both signed the divorce agreement. There were 2 copies, one for him and one for me. Duanmu K continued, my divorce agreement has already been torn. Hearing him say that, my head was filled with blood. How could he be so impulsive? I was about to open my mouth to ask when Duanmu K continued, I asked my lawyer to draft a declaration. It's a declaration canceling the divorce. I've already signed it. When you come back from the hospital, remember to sign it. Hearing Duanmu K say that, my head was spinning. I tried to calm myself down and said, Duanmu K, the divorce is a fact. It's too late for you to back out now. I will not sign this declaration. Naturally, it has no legal effect. So, you don't have to waste your time trying to remarry me to make it easier for you to torture me. I won't agree to it. Duanmu K was stunned for a while. Then he said to me, it's not up to you. Even if you don't want to, I will find a way to make you sign it willingly. Hearing Duanmu K's words, I felt very uneasy. I was afraid that Han Hao would suddenly barge in and overhear it. I lowered my voice and said to Duanmu K, if you do anything to hurt my family or my friends, I won't let you go. I'm not as strong as you, but I will fight you to the end. Duanmu K sneered and said, as long as you listen to me, I won't do anything out of line. I've told you before that you'd better not challenge my bottom line. Then, Duanmu K hung up the phone. Hearing the busy tone, I clenched my fists in anger. I hadn't expected him to be so unreasonable. At this moment, Han Hao walked in. He looked at my serious face and walked to my side. He touched my face and said, what's wrong? Your face is red, and your expression is so serious. Did something happen? I didn't say anything and just shook my head. Han Hao looked at the phone in my hand and understood. He held me in his arms and whispered, did Duanmu K call and say something to make you unhappy? Don't think about it. Your health is the most important thing. If you keep getting angry, you're already weak. You'll get angry. I lifted my head from Han Hao's arms and looked at him. I sighed. I thought it would be better not to tell him that Duanmu K wanted to remarry. He had just proposed to me. If something like this happened, he wouldn't be happy. I looked at Han Hao and said, it's late. Let's rest. I'm tired. Han Hao saw that I had something on my mind that I didn't want to say. He nodded and said, whatever. Don't be angry. Your health is the most important thing right now. Chapter 132. I leaned against Han Hao's chest and felt at ease. Han Hao kissed me on the forehead. He laid me down and gently covered me with the blanket. He held my hand. I could see that he didn't look sleepy at all. He looked at me and said, it's late. Go to sleep. Don't worry, I'll be here with you. Go to sleep. I nodded gently and closed my eyes. But I didn't fall asleep. I could feel that Han Hao had stayed by my side for a while. Then, he left. I could feel that he walked over to the small sofa. I guessed that he was going to sleep there for the night. I turned around and opened my eyes to look at him. His sleeping posture was awkward, but I had to admit that Han Hao's sleeping face was very beautiful. I called out softly, Han Hao, are you asleep? Han Hao raised his head and looked at me. I'm not asleep yet. What's wrong? Can't sleep? I looked at him and gently patted the bed. Come here and sleep, I said. Hearing my words, Han Hao's face turned crimson. He lowered his head and said in a low voice, I don't think so. The bed is only so big. If I disturb your rest, it won't be good if the nurse comes to check the room and sees it. It won't be good for you if the gossip spreads. I smiled and looked at him. It's okay. In a single room like ours, the nurse will only come if there's no escort or if there's an SOS button. Besides, if the gossip spreads, then so be it. We're both above board. What are you afraid of? Han Hao thought for a while and sat up on the sofa. He hugged the blanket and walked over to me. First, he covered me with the blanket. I moved to make room for Han Hao. Han Hao looked at me and smiled shyly. Then, he crawled under the blanket. Before he could lie down, I hugged him from behind. Han Hao was stunned at first. He turned around and hugged me tightly. I leaned against Han Hao's chest and felt his scent. Han Hao's heart was beating very fast. It seemed that he was very nervous when he hugged me like this. Han Hao hugged me and said softly, "Xiao Li, I can't sleep." I knew what Han Hao really meant. It seemed that he had a reaction. My face was a little hot too. I leaned into Han Hao's embrace and looked at him. "Why don't you stop hugging me? Your face is too red. Is it because you're not feeling well?" Han Hao's face turned even redder. He didn't dare to look at me. He whispered in my ear, "Xiao Li, I'll tell you a secret. Don't laugh at me." I looked at him suspiciously and asked, "What secret?" "Don't worry. I'm very tight-lipped. Don't worry. What secret is it?" Han Hao whispered in my ear, I've never touched a woman in my life. Will you laugh at me?" When I heard Han Hao say that, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Han Hao looked at me and pouted. He said unhappily, "See, you're laughing at me. I'm so unhappy. If I'd known earlier, I wouldn't have said it. I don't know what to do now that you're laughing at me." I reached out and touched Han Hao's face. "No, I don't care about that. It's just that when I saw your cute expression, I couldn't help but laugh. I don't care about that. I won't laugh at you." Han Hao stroked my hair and said, "Xiao Li, do you think that a boy like me has ruined a lot of little girls?" I shook my head and looked at Han Hao. "No, why would you ask that?" Han Hao sighed and said, "Actually, I don't know how it's defined now. 2 years ago, there was a period of time when the Black Nightmare Society was particularly busy, and I often worked overtime. I left early and returned late every day, so I didn't have much time to explain to my parents. In the end, one day, I was called to the study as soon as I got home, and they asked me what I had been doing for the past few days. I said I was working overtime, and both of them looked like they didn't believe me. My father was more straightforward when he spoke. He asked me directly if I was in a relationship, and I said I wasn't. My father then told me that if I went out with a girl, I had to remember to take protective measures. At the time, I didn't understand why my father said that. Later, my friends around me experienced more, and I only understood after listening to them that he was referring to things between a man and a woman. I told them that I had never done it with a woman, but they didn't believe me, and even laughed at me. Later, when I told my father, he also felt that it was particularly unbelievable, so I didn't understand whether someone like me would be considered a bad man who harmed girls. I stroked Han Hao's face and said, "Don't think too much. Maybe that's what other people say, but I don't think that way. You're a good boy and a responsible person. I'm thinking that there must be a lot of girls chasing after you. Of course, there must be a lot of girls throwing themselves at you. You're still so innocent, so you must have your own principles, right?" Han Hao nodded and said, "You're right. Previously, there was a girl who colluded with 2 of my buddies to get me drunk and then force me to do something with her. When they helped me to the hotel, I was already sober, so that girl's idea didn't work out. After that, she even spread rumors that I had sex with her. At that time, she came to the Black Skeleton group to cause a ruckus and insisted that I take responsibility for her. Fortunately, Duanmu K took care of it for me. I heard that he gave her a sum of money and she stopped causing trouble." After hearing Han Hao mention Duanmu K's name, his expression immediately changed. He looked very disappointed. It seemed that I had affected the relationship between the 2 of them. I looked at Han Hao and said, "Don't think too much about it. It's all in the past. Actually, Duanmu K's temper is a bit strange, but other than that, he's fine. He's a person who values relationships and righteousness, but sometimes the things he does are a bit too extreme." Han Hao sighed and said, "When you first got married to little K, he didn't know you very well and was very resentful of this marriage. Later on, when he gradually began to like you, he would only say that you were good. Even when he was with us, when we originally agreed to go out and play together, he would refuse, saying that he wanted to accompany you. But since he lost his memory in the car accident, he has completely changed. If he used to have a bad temper, then he has become completely irritable now. Sometimes, I feel that I don't even know him anymore. In the past, no matter how much we quarreled, we never hit each other, but now. Forget it, let's not talk about it anymore. Looking at Han Hao's disappointed expression, I didn't know how to comfort him. Although the friendship from childhood could withstand the test of time, because of the change in personality, the feelings would also change. Chapter 133. Han Hao saw that I was still thinking about random things. He gently kissed my forehead and said to me, "Shaoli, it's getting late. You should rest. You've been tossing and turning for a long time today. It's time for you to sleep. Otherwise, I'll be worried." I nodded and leaned into Han Hao's embrace, closing my eyes. Just like that, Han Hao and I hugged each other and slept through the night on the hospital bed. That night, I slept very well. I felt like I'd made up for all the sleep I'd lost over the past few days. I didn't know how long I slept. When I woke up, the sun was already very high up in the sky. However, Han Hao wasn't by my side. I didn't know where he had gone. I sat up on the bed. The door to the ward opened and Han Hao walked in with 2 thermos containers in his hands. When he saw that I had woken up, he smiled and said, "Shaoli, you're awake. How did you sleep?" I smiled and looked at him. "I slept very well." I looked at the thermos containers in his hands. "Don't you have Xinyao and Suri deliver every meal? How come you went to get the food?" Han Hao put the thermos containers on the bedside table. He looked at me and said, "They arrived a while ago. When they saw that you were still sleeping, they handed me the food. Then, they went to see Suri's sister. They said they'd come back later." "Oh, so they came already. How long did I sleep?" I reached for the mouthwash on the bedside table and shook my head helplessly. Han Hao looked at me and smiled. "You slept very soundly, but in the second half of the night, you were sweating all over. I was afraid you wouldn't feel comfortable sleeping wet, so." Han Hao's face turned red again. I tilted my head and looked at him. I didn't know why he was shy again. He didn't dare to look up at me. "So I helped you change your clothes," he said in a low voice. "But I promise. You'll be fine. I didn't mean to peek. I was really afraid that you wouldn't sleep well, so I helped you change your clothes. You won't blame me, right?" I lowered my head and looked at my clothes. They really had been changed. My face turned a little red, but I didn't know what to say. I lowered my head and whispered, "It's okay. Thank you for taking care of me. You didn't sleep well, did you?" Han Hao sat on the edge of the bed and brought me a bowl of porridge. He looked at me and said, "I'm fine. I'm happy to see you get better. That's why you have to take good care of yourself." Han Hao scooped a spoonful of porridge and handed it to me. He gestured for me to drink it. I watched as he opened his mouth and drank the porridge. At this moment, the door to the ward was pushed open. Xinyao and Suri walked in and saw Han Hao feeding me the porridge. Xinyao hurriedly covered her eyes and walked into the ward. She didn't forget to say, "Oh my, you're showing off your love. My eyes are blinded. I didn't see anything." Seeing Xinyao's mischievous appearance, Han Hao put down the bowl and stood up. He looked at Xinyao and said, "You're back. How's your sister? How's she recovering?" Xinyao skipped to my bedside and sat down. She picked up the bowl of porridge and began to feed me mouthful by mouthful. Xinyao smiled and said, "Han Hao, Gidge, Suri's sister is really cute. She's recovering well. I asked the doctor. She can be discharged in a few days. At that time, I'll bring her back to my house. I promised her that I'll play with her. By the way, sister-in-law, how are you? After a night's sleep, you look much better." I glanced at Suri. Suri ran to the bathroom and took out a mop. He began to clean the ward. Seeing Suri working so hard, I looked at Xinyao and said, "Girl, look at how hard-working Suri is. You've hit the jackpot." Xinyao turned to look at Suri. She pouted and looked at me. It's just that he doesn't do much. He'll have to practice in the future. At this time, Su Rue looked at me with a smile and said, Eldest miss, you don't need to scold her. After all, Xinyao is the little princess of the Duanmu family. Let me do the rough work. It's not particularly complicated. I looked at Suri. Suri, you can't do that. You're spoiling her. You're spoiling her too much. Suri smiled and scratched his head. Miss, don't joke around. I don't think it's bad. I'm quite willing to do it. It's fine for a man to do more. Han Hao stood to the side and said, That's right. I think Suri's words are very reasonable. It's fine for a man to do more. It's all for the woman he loves. While we were talking and laughing, there was a knock on the door. Come in. Xinyao shouted. The door to the ward was pushed open, and a man walked in with a briefcase in his hand. He entered and closed the door. Then, he looked at us and said, Excuse me, which one of you is Miss Cold Glaze? So he was looking for me. I looked at him and said, I am. What can I do for you? The man glanced at me, then opened the briefcase and took out a few pieces of paper. He looked at me and said, Hello, Miss Lang. I'm an employee of the Black Viper Group's legal department. I was asked by young Master Duanmu to bring this declaration of marriage. Young Master Duanmu has already signed it. Now, we only need Miss Lang's signature. As long as you sign it, this document will take effect immediately. Your divorce agreement with young Master Duanmu will be terminated. What? Xinyao, Suri, and Han Hao were stunned when they heard this. I looked at the man and said seriously, Didn't I already tell Duanmu Ke? I won't sign this agreement. You can go back. Don't worry about it. The man smiled and looked at me. Miss Lang, as far as I know, you were opposed to the divorce with young Master Duanmu from the beginning. However, I don't know why you agreed to it later. Now that young Master Duanmu has chosen not to divorce, isn't that what you wanted? This agreement seems to be of great benefit to you. I don't need it. I've already made it very clear to Duanmu Ke that I won't agree to his unreasonable request. You can go back. I need to rest now. I turned my head and didn't look at him anymore. The man looked at me and said, Miss Lang, young Master Duanmu told me to delay a message for you. If you don't want to sign this agreement, it will affect your loved ones. So, I hope Miss Lang will reconsider. If you really hurt the people around you, then the one who will be hurt will be Miss Lang, right? What do you mean? Suri rushed in front of the man. He grabbed the man's collar and looked at him fiercely. The man struggled with all his might, trying to shake off Suri's hand. Chapter 134. What he means is what I mean. A voice came from outside the room. Then, the door was pushed open, and Duanmu Ke came in. I didn't know why, but when I saw him, I felt a trace of hatred. The man shook off Suri's hand and retreated behind Duanmu Quebec. Duanmu Ke looked at me and said, You look pretty good. Since that's the case, I won't talk nonsense with you. Since you look pretty good, sign this remarriage agreement. Duanmu Ke handed the agreement to me, but Han Hao rushed in front of me and blocked me behind him. He looked at Duanmu Ke, and the atmosphere in the room was tense. I looked at Duanmu Ke and said, I told you, I won't sign this agreement. Don't waste your time. You were the one who wanted to do all of this. I didn't even think about it. Duanmu Ke looked at me and said in a low voice, I also told you that this isn't up to you. Yesterday was the first warning, and today is the second. I won't give you a third chance. Let's go. Then, Duanmu Ke left with the man. After Duanmu Ke left, Han Hao turned around and looked at me with a puzzled expression. Shaoli, what's going on? Weren't you going to divorce? How come this remarriage agreement popped up? What's going on? Could it be that little K called you yesterday to talk about this? Why didn't you tell me earlier? My tears flowed down. Seeing me cry, Xinyao pushed Han Hao away and hugged me. Han Hao, Gidge, what are you doing? You made my sister-in-law cry. If you have something to ask, you should ask slowly. Why did you ask so many questions all of a sudden? My sister-in-law doesn't know how to answer. Han Hao was so angry that he couldn't speak. He sat to the side. I looked up at Han Hao and said in a low voice, I thought I could solve this problem myself. I didn't expect him to come to my door so quickly. I'm not afraid, but I'm afraid he will hurt the people around me. I don't know who he will hurt and how I can protect them. Xin Yao sighed and said, this matter, my brother is too self-centered. He's too fickle. Before, he insisted on getting a divorce. Now that he says he doesn't want a divorce, he won't divorce. It's really a joke. I looked at Han Hao. He was still sitting there, sulking. He didn't say a word. I looked at Xin Yao and Suri. You two go back. It's time to prepare lunch. I have something to talk to Han Hao about. Xin Yao looked at me and reluctantly said, Okay. Sister-in-law, rest well. She turned to Han Hao and said, Han Hao, Gidge, don't bully my sister-in-law anymore. She's very weak. If you have any problems, ask her nicely. Then the two of them left. Only Han Hao and I were left in the room. I looked at Han Hao and asked in a low voice, Han Hao, are you angry? Han Hao didn't speak. He just lowered his head and didn't say a word. I sighed and looked at Han Hao. I'm sorry. I didn't tell you about this at first. I thought I could solve it myself, but it seems I overestimated my abilities. I really didn't expect him to come and cause trouble today. It's all my fault. Don't be angry, okay? Han Hao raised his head and looked at me. His eyes were a little moist. He said in a low voice, Shaoli, I'm not angry because you didn't tell me about this. I'm angry because I couldn't do anything when you suffered so much. I suddenly feel so useless. I can't even protect the woman I love. Looking at Han Hao's sad face, I didn't feel good. I struggled to get up from the bed and walked over to Han Hao. When I reached his side, I gently hugged him. Han Hao leaned against my chest and I could feel his sadness. I patted Han Hao's shoulder and said in a low voice, Han Hao, don't be sad anymore. Seeing you like this makes me very uncomfortable. I know you love me, so don't think like this anymore. Don't be sad anymore. Han Hao raised his head and looked at me. He stood up and hugged me tightly in his arms. He said in a low voice, Shaoli, don't leave me. I'm really scared. I'm really scared that you'll leave me. I just held you in my arms. I don't want to lose you, and I don't want to leave you either. Shaoli, promise me, don't leave me, okay? I hugged Han Hao and gently stroked his back. I said in a low voice, I won't leave you. I'll never leave you. Just like that, two lonely people could only give each other the truest warmth by leaning against each other. I suddenly felt that I only had Han Hao in my heart. I couldn't bear to see Han Hao so sad. I just wanted to do my best to protect him. I hoped that Duanmu K's first target wasn't Han Hao. In the afternoon, the doctor came to check the room with some examination reports. After the doctor looked at the medical records, he looked at me and said, Her body is recovering well. Normally, she can be discharged tomorrow. Miss Lung, when do you want to be discharged? Before I could open my mouth, Han Hao said, Doctor, can we delay it for 2 days? Give her a full checkup. She's pregnant, after all. What if these things affect the baby's development? The doctor's expression was obviously conflicted. He looked at Han Hao and said, Young Master Han, our emergency ward is also very tight. There are many patients who need to be admitted to the hospital. I hope that young Master Han can consider our hospital situation. Han Hao said seriously, I won't shortchange you. It doesn't matter who stays in the hospital. Why do you have to shortchange my ward? I tugged on Han Hao's arm and said to the doctor, Doctor, that's all. I'll have to trouble you to arrange for me to be discharged tomorrow. Thank you. The doctor nodded and left. After the doctor left, Han Hao looked at me and said, Shaoli, why don't you stay for a few more days? What if Duanmu K forces you again when you go back? What if something happens to you again? I looked at Han Hao and smiled. He won't. I'll endure these few days. I won't let him have his way. Don't think too much. What I'm afraid of now is that if he really wants to take action, you might be the first one. I'm afraid that he'll hurt you. I'm not afraid of that. But whenever I think about him torturing you, I feel very uncomfortable. Why don't you just go back home and wait until the scheduled date? Han Hao looked at me and said worriedly. Chapter 135. It's okay. I have to go back to the Duanmu house. If something really happens, I can still control the Duanmu Quebec. At least now that he wants to remarry me, he won't do anything to me. He'll consider my feelings. I understood the Duanmu K's true intentions. Since he still thought that I was useful, he wouldn't torture me. Han Hao sighed and looked at me. Shaoli, what I'm afraid of is not what he'll do to me. For you, I'm willing to fight against him. What I'm most afraid of is that he'll hurt you. I can't stay at the Duanmu house for a long time. If I stay for a long time, the Duanmu house will suspect me. That's why I have a headache. I don't know what to do. What can I do to protect you? I reached out and gently stroked Han Hao's face. It's okay. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. If I really can't handle it, I'll come find you, okay? Han Hao held my hand. You don't have to handle it. If you need me, I'll immediately appear in front of you. Han Hao hugged me, his expression sad. It was true. If the two of us wanted to be together, we would have to go through a lot of difficulties. The next day, I went through the discharge procedures. Han Hao woke up early and helped me pack my luggage. When everything was ready, he left. Duanmu K was coming to pick me up today. He didn't want to see Han Hao. When Xin Yao and Suri arrived, he said a few words and left. Looking at Han Hao's departing figure, I silently swore in my heart that I would definitely be together with Han Hao. No matter what happened, I would be with him. Suri and Xin Yao chatted with me for a while before Duanmu K arrived. When he saw that we were almost done packing, he looked at me and said, "You're all done. Let's go." He picked up a luggage bag and walked out of the room. His attitude was still as cold as before. Xin Yao supported me, and Suri carried a pile of things. We left the room and the hospital. When we returned to the Duanmu house, Duanmu Tachio and Xiao Fengya were already waiting for us in the living room. As soon as we entered the living room, Xiao Fengya greeted us. She took my hand and said, "Shaoli, you're back. It's been hard for you. You've lost weight." Duanmu Tachio also walked forward. He looked at me and said, "Shaoli, it's good that you're back. Go upstairs and rest. Don't walk around. Arrange for the nanny to bring lunch and dinner upstairs." "That's right," Xiao Fengya said. "I'll take care of this. You don't need to worry. Hurry and take Shaoli upstairs to rest." Duanmu K nodded. He helped me up the stairs, but Xin Yao stopped him. Xin Yao stood in front of Duanmu Quebec. "Brother, I'm telling you in a very serious manner," she said. "Please don't hurt my sister-in-law again. If you don't treat her nicely, I'll really turn against you. This time, I'm serious. Brother, please don't challenge my bottom line." Duanmu K looked at Xin Yao and said, "I know what I should do." Then Duanmu K pulled me past Xin Yao and into the bedroom. After entering the bedroom, Duanmu K put the luggage on the chair. He glanced at me, opened the wardrobe, took out a set of pajamas, and threw it on the bed. Then he looked at me and said, "Change into this and rest well. The nanny will bring lunch and dinner to you. I have a meeting at work, so I have to go." Duanmu K walked to the door. He stopped and turned to look at me. "Don't even think about running away. It's useless. I've placed the remarriage agreement on the dressing table. You'd better sign it as soon as possible." I stood by the bed and looked at him. "I've already said that I won't sign it. Don't waste your breath. Once I've decided on something, I won't change it." Duanmu K smiled coldly. He looked at me and said, I'm not afraid to tell you that if you don't sign it, the first person I'll lay my hands on will be Han Hao. Since you love him so much and want to be with him, I won't let the two of you get happiness so easily. Of course, I'm not jealous. I hate you. Duanmu K looked at my increasingly frightened expression. He smiled again and looked at me. I'm going to work now. Think about it carefully. Then Duanmu K left the bedroom. After Duanmu K left, I trembled with anger. He was as stubborn as ever. There were only 7 days left until the date of the divorce. I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't know what to do. Forget it. I'd better take a good rest and think about it later. I changed into my pajamas and got into bed. There was a knock on the bedroom door. Come in, I said softly. The bedroom door opened. The person who came in was Yu Xian. She entered and closed the door behind her. She looked at me and said, You look good. Uncle and Auntie were so worried. You're fine, aren't you? I looked at Yu Xian and said, It's nothing. The parents are worried. Naturally, they'll be very concerned about me. Yu Xian leaned against the door. She looked at me and said, You're leaving in 7 days. What do you think? Don't you feel a bit sad? I looked at Yu Xian. Obviously, she didn't know that Duanmu K had suddenly changed his mind and wanted to remarry her. However, looking at Yu Xian's proud expression, I felt the need to provoke her. I looked at Yu Xian and sneered. It seems that you have no idea what Duanmu K is planning right now. Yu Xian's face suddenly became very ugly. She looked at me and said, What is it? I smiled and said, It seems that Duanmu K doesn't treat you as one of his own. He didn't even tell you this. You still haven't changed your bad habit of thinking too much. Yu Xian took 2 steps towards me. She looked at me and said very seriously, Hurry up and tell me. What is it? I looked at Yu Xian and said, Duanmu K asked the legal department to draft a remarriage agreement. He doesn't want to get a divorce anymore. But don't worry, the one who doesn't want a divorce is me, not him. I've already decided that no matter what, I won't sign this remarriage agreement. Isn't this fulfilling your wish? Yu Xian's face became even uglier. She looked at me and said, What? Duanmu, Gij wants to remarry you? So what if you want a divorce? Can you win against Duanmu, Gij? Don't you know what kind of strength you have? I smiled and looked at Yu Xian. I don't have as much power as Duanmu Quebec. I also know that it's impossible for me to not sign this agreement. I also don't have the ability to fight against him. But I still want to take a gamble and do my best to protect the people around me. No matter what, as long as you get a divorce, it'll be good for you. Chapter 136. So what you're saying is, you're thinking for me? When did you become so kind? I've harmed you before, aren't you afraid that I'll harm you again? Yu Xian looked at me, still worried. I looked at Yu Xian and said, You have indeed harmed me, and caused me to lose my child. I won't forget this hatred for the rest of my life. But now that I'm in this situation, I want to work with you temporarily. As long as you help me get a divorce with the Duanmu K, I won't appear between you and the Duanmu K anymore. After that, you and I will have nothing to do with each other. Yu Xian thought for a moment, then looked at me and said, What you're saying is indeed very beneficial to me, but why should I believe you? What if you're deliberately saying this to trick me? I looked at Yu Xian and said, My heart already belongs to someone else. I accepted Han Hao's proposal and decided to be with him. Right now, I really don't have any feelings for the Duanmu Quebec. You don't need to worry about that. Besides, when the Duanmu K tortured me, you saw it with your own eyes. If you were the one being tortured, would you still love such a person? I tried to think of a way to convince Yu Xian. Yu Xian thought for a moment, then said to me, Then how do you want me to cooperate with you? I looked at Yu Xian and said, Don't you like the Duanmu K? Now you can reveal your true feelings to him. Besides, You can continue to use the methods you used on him before. I thought back to the time when Xin had schemed to climb into the Duanmu K's bed. My heart was still filled with hatred. But right now, my main goal was to get the Duanmu K to agree to the divorce. Xin also had the same goal, so I believed that she would agree. Xin looked at me and said, "All right, I promise you. I hope you can keep your word. I hate people who go back on their words the most." After saying that, Xin left the room. After Xin left, I lay on the bed and thought about it carefully. I didn't know if my decision was right or wrong. In fact, I was conflicted in my heart. To be honest, I still had feelings for Duanmu K, but I couldn't stand the torture he gave me. In fact, I knew that divorce was the best way for Duanmu K, for me, and for everyone else. I looked at the agreement on the dressing table with a complicated feeling. I wouldn't sign it. This time, I had to fight against Duanmu K to the end. I slept for a whole day. Because my body was still weak, and perhaps because of the baby in my belly, I didn't have any appetite. I didn't eat much of the food the nanny brought me. The weather wasn't very good today, so I didn't want to go out. I could only lie on the bed and endure the torment in my heart. After dinner time, I casually found a book to read. Not long after, the bedroom door was pushed open, and Duanmu K walked into the bedroom. The two of us looked at each other, and I continued to read while he walked into the bathroom to take a shower. It was good that we didn't talk. I didn't want to make him unhappy, and I was also afraid that he would talk and make me unhappy. Not long after, Duanmu K finished his shower and walked out of the bathroom. He stood at the door with his upper body naked. While wiping the water droplets off his body, he looked at me and said, "You didn't go out all day?" I looked at Duanmu K and said, "No, I didn't feel well. I didn't want to go out. The weather was bad, so I was too lazy to move." Duanmu K walked in front of the dressing table and saw the untouched agreement. He looked at me through the mirror and said, "You still haven't signed it, right?" I put down the book and looked at Duanmu Quebec. "I haven't signed it. You're stubborn, and I'm stubborn too. If I don't want to do something, it's useless for you to force me. You'll definitely say that if you don't sign it, I'll start with the people you love the most. I can only say that although your influence is strong, the Red Ming Hui isn't for nothing. Although my influence is in America, I'll still do my best to fight against you. You don't have to waste your time." Duanmu K turned around and looked at me. "You said what I wanted to say." Duanmu K's eyes suddenly became very gentle. He looked at me and said, "Do you really want to divorce me that much?" I looked at Duanmu K and my heart suddenly became very sad. I looked at him and said, "I really miss the time when we were together. I don't know if you've seen the video of us getting married. It was like acting, there was no emotion to speak of." After that, the two of us gradually fell in love with each other. Our words and actions revealed a perfect tacit understanding. Unfortunately, we didn't even have a picture of us at that time, only memories. I've never regretted falling in love with you. I also know that the things you did to me were out of your own will, not out of your own heart. If you still had a trace of feelings for me, you wouldn't have done this to me, because you love me. But now, you don't love me anymore. There's no point in us forcing each other to be together. It was rare that Duanmu K and I could talk about things so calmly without quarrels. Duanmu K looked at me and said with a smile, "In my eyes, you're completely different from the other women I know. The women I know are all submissive when they see me. They'll do whatever I want and will never go against me. Previously, there was a woman who deliberately got close to me. When she was by my side, she didn't hold back her words. No matter what happened around me, she would always butt in. When I couldn't stand her anymore, she actually plotted to frame me. After I saw through her, do you know what I did to her? What did I do to her?" I looked at Duanmu Quebec hearing him say that. It couldn't be anything good. Duanmu K looked at me and said, "I stripped her naked and put her on the dock." Coincidentally, there was a group of workers working overtime to unload goods. This naked woman appeared in front of a pack of hungry wolves. Guess what happened? Hearing Duanmu K say that, I tightly clenched my fists. I looked at him and said, Duanmu K, you're really bad to the bone. Duanmu K sneered. He looked at me and said, I'm a very serious person. Of course, I will give the people around me a chance. You only get one chance, but you can't go too far. I have principles. Since I'm given a chance, it's best to seize it. Relatively speaking, I'm a very humane person. Duanmu K's words seemed to be meant for me to hear. He probably meant for me to seize the chance he'd given me. I looked at Duanmu K and said, pointing at the mulberry tree and cursing the locust tree isn't your style. You don't need to be so careful with your words. If you have something to say, just say it. Chapter 137. Duanmu K walked to the side of the bed and climbed onto it, pressing down on my front. He reached out and lifted my chin, looking at me as he said, I've already given you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. Now, you've already begun to cross my bottom line. I'm now considering whether to let you go. Just like you said, I once loved you, and you're also my woman. If I treat you badly, the outside world will say that I'm a wife abuser, and it won't be good for the Black Nightmare Society's image either. If I don't let you go, I'll feel unhappy in my heart. I looked at Duanmu Quebec. His eyes were full of provocation. It was as if he wanted to torture me, but at the same time, he didn't want to torture me. I looked at Duanmu K and said, I'm not crossing your bottom line, and I'm not cherishing the chance you gave me. I just want to tell you that I won't live a life of being manipulated by others. I won't sign the divorce papers. I'm going to divorce. I stared at Duanmu Quebec. He was stunned at first, and then his expression became serious. Duanmu K let go of his hand and slid it down my neck. He stared at me and reached out to unbutton my shirt. 1, 2. He undid all the buttons and took off my shirt. My upper body was naked in front of him except for my underwear. Duanmu K looked at me, his hands caressing my body wantonly. He looked very proud, as if he wanted to see me naked. Duanmu K looked at me and said, Tell me, if I sent you to the dock and tortured you like that, would you obediently sign the divorce papers? Duanmu K reached out and unbuttoned my underwear. Just like that, I was naked in front of him. I looked at Duanmu K, but I didn't struggle or resist. I just let him touch me. Although I was very resistant, I just sat in front of him calmly. Duanmu K looked up at me and said, Aren't you afraid? I looked at Duanmu K and said, No. If you do this to me, the one whose reputation will be damaged will be the Duanmu family, not just me. Of course, I won't let you torture me with such cruel methods. Don't worry. If you really do this, I will kill myself. When that happens, the Duanmu family will have one more crime. You're a vicious woman. Duanmu K stopped and looked at me. His eyes revealed a ferocious look. I sneered and said, Let's break up. I like Mom and Dad, I like Xinyao, I like the old you. But to me now, this place hurts me. Although I miss it, I don't want to hurt myself anymore. So, let's break up peacefully. I looked at Duanmu Quebec. My heart was not calm. I hoped he would make this choice. Duanmu K's hand left my body. He helped me tidy up my clothes and button them one by one. He looked at me and said, I'll think about it. Duanmu K pressed me down on the bed. He lifted my chin and suddenly kissed me on the lips. I reached out and pushed him away with all my might. He grabbed my hand and I couldn't resist. He looked up at me and said, You really are an extraordinary woman. I'm getting more and more curious about you. I used all my strength to push Duanmu K off the bed. I struggled to climb up and looked at him fiercely. Duanmu K, don't bother. Please respect what you said just now and carefully consider the matter of divorce. There are still 6 days left. I hope you don't regret it. Duanmu K looked up. He glanced at me and then left the room. After Duanmu K left, I gasped for breath. I didn't know if my words would provoke him and cause him to do something extreme. I suddenly felt worried and uneasy. I hesitated for a moment and then got up from the bed. I put on my jacket and walked out of the bedroom to the living room. When I arrived at the living room, everyone was chatting on the sofa. Xiao Fengya saw me coming downstairs and hurried over to me. She held my arm and said, "Xiao Li, why did you come down? I saw that you haven't left the room all day. It's good to take a walk. Are you hungry? The nanny told me that you haven't eaten much. Are you starving?" I looked at Xiao Fengya and smiled. I shook my head and said, "Mom, I'm not hungry. I slept well. I don't have much of an appetite." Xiao Fengya looked at me and said, "Okay then. If you need anything, remember to tell me. I'll ask the nanny to cook something delicious for you." I looked around and saw that Suri was there. I glanced at him and then at Xiao Fengya. "Mom, there's something I want to talk to Suri about outside." Xiao Fengya looked at me and said, "Okay. Put on your clothes first." She turned to Suri and said, "Suri, if Xiaoli doesn't feel well, hurry and bring her back. Don't let her stay outside for too long." Suri nodded and then followed me out of the room. Suri and I walked to the garden. I came to the place where the rose pond used to be. There was nothing there now, but the rattan chair was still there. I sat on the rattan chair and looked at the empty space. Suri saw my disappointed expression and stood next to me. "Young mistress, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" I sighed and looked at Suri. "No," I said. "It's just that seeing this desolate place makes me feel very uncomfortable." Suri patted my shoulder and said, "Young mistress, don't be sad. In a few days, everything will be over." Today, I saw Duanmu Kei's expression. It doesn't seem to be as fierce as it was when I first met him. It looks like things will be resolved smoothly. I shook my head and looked at Suri. For now, I've managed to calm his violent nature. But I'm afraid that he'll suddenly do something unexpected. If I can't control him, then the ones who will be hurt will be you. That's not something I want to see. I'm so scared. Young mistress, don't worry. I won't leave you. No matter what happens, I'll stand by your side. I'll do my best to protect you. This isn't just my wish, it's also Xinyao's wish. Both Xinyao and I will stand by your side." Suri looked at me, his expression resolute. I sighed and looked at Suri. "I think you and Xinyao are doing well together. I'll do my best to persuade Duanmu Kei to get a peaceful divorce. I'll do my best to protect you. Let me bear all of this alone." Suri looked at me. "Young mistress, don't say that. You're more important than all of us. The one who shouldn't be hurt the most is yourself." Chapter 138. I glanced around Duanmu's house. I don't know why, but every time I return to this house, I don't feel as sad as before. I feel very calm now. When I talked to Duanmu Kei this time, I felt that he had calmed down too. He said that he would think about it. That's a good start. Suri looked at me. "Miss, I have a question to ask you, but I'm afraid that you'll be angry." "I don't know if I can ask." I looked up at Suri. "What's the question?" "Just ask. I won't lose my temper. Just say it." Suri paused. He looked at me and said, "Miss, between Duanmu Kei and Han Hao, who do you love?" I looked at Su Rue and sighed. "You're not afraid that I'll be angry with this question. You're afraid that I won't know how to answer it. This is indeed a very difficult question. If I say that I love both of you, will you think that I'm a fickle woman?" Su Rue sighed and said. Suri looked at me. "I already guessed it. The way you look at Duanmu Kei is the same as the way you look at Han Hao. But from an outsider's point of view, you should love Duanmu Kei more." Hearing Suri's words, I was shocked. I looked at him suspiciously. "How can you be sure that I love Duanmu Kei more than I love Han Hao?" Suri sat on the edge of the abandoned rose pond. He looked at me and said, "Your love for Duanmu Kei comes from your heart. But your love for Han Hao is more of gratitude. You're grateful that he took care of you when you were at your weakest. When you needed care the most, he took care of you. Your gratitude for his love is greater than your sincerity. Listening to Su Rui's words, they did make sense. I really didn't know how to resolve the feelings between the two of us. I looked at Su Rui and smiled. Okay, I understand. Let's go back. If we stay out for too long, everyone will misunderstand. Okay. Suri walked over and helped me stand up. We walked towards the door. As soon as we walked out of the garden, we saw Yu Xian holding Duanmu Kei's arm as they walked out of the living room. Coincidentally, we bumped into each other and stopped in unison. Duanmu Kei stopped and looked at Suri, who was supporting me. His expression was very serious, and he looked at me without saying a word. Yu Xian looked at me, and she immediately understood what I meant. She held onto Duanmu Kei's arm and said sweetly, "Brother Duanmu, let's go. We don't have much time. The sisters are waiting for us." Duanmu Kei glanced at Yu Xian and said softly, "Okay, I got it." Duanmu Kei turned to look at me. His eyes were still very calm. He walked past me and left without saying a word. When we returned to the living room, I said goodbye and went upstairs to the bedroom. The divorce wasn't up to me. It was up to Duanmu Quebec. As soon as I lay down, I received a message from Yu Xian. It said, "Brother Duanmu won't be coming back tonight. You don't have to wait for him." It seemed that Yu Xian had succeeded. I didn't know if what she had done was right or wrong. When I thought about the person I loved and the person I hated being so lovey-dovey with each other, I felt very uncomfortable. However, for the sake of my ultimate goal, I endured it all. I didn't sleep well that night. I remembered having a very long dream. I dreamt that Han Hao and I were happily taking a stroll in a garden. Not far away, we saw Duanmu Quebec. He stood there and saw Han Hao and I happy together. Suddenly, he went berserk. He took out a knife from his chest and tried to stab me. To protect me, Han Hao blocked in front of me. Duanmu Kei's knife pierced deeply into Han Hao's chest. Han Hao's blood flowed out and dyed the entire garden red. Han Hao lay in my arms. I cried until my voice was hoarse, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't wake him up. When I woke up again, it was already the next day. Duanmu Kei didn't come back. I stretched out my hand and touched the empty bed. I didn't feel good about it. I simply tidied myself up. I had made a big decision today. I wanted to rearrange the abandoned roses. It would be the last good memory I had left in Duanmu Kei's house. As soon as I walked out of the bedroom, I turned my head and saw that Yu Xian's bedroom door was wide open. She usually closed her door. I didn't know what happened to her today, but she actually opened it. It was really rare. I thought about it and walked towards her door. I wanted to ask her how things went yesterday. When I arrived at Yu Xian's bedroom door, I saw a scene that shocked me. Yu Xian was wearing very sexy pajamas as she sat in front of the dressing table and was putting on makeup. Duanmu Kei was lying on the bed in the room. Although he was covered with a blanket, she could see that his upper body was naked. As for whether he was wearing anything below, she did not know. I stood dumbly in front of Yu Xian's bedroom door. My mood was very complicated. This was indeed the result I wanted, but why did my heart feel like it was being torn apart when I saw this scene? Yu Xian glanced around and happened to see me. At first, she was stunned. Then, she turned her head and looked at Duanmu Kei, who was still sleeping soundly. She stood up and walked towards me. She stopped in front of me and said in a low voice, "Sure, don't wake him up." Hearing Yu Xian's words, I could only pretend to be calm. I looked at her and said, "It seems you've done your job. Congratulations." At this moment, Duanmu Kei stretched and sat up on the bed. Yu Xian looked at me and said in a low voice, "Quick, give me a push." I didn't understand what Yu Xian meant. She gave Duanmu Kei a look, and I understood. She wanted to put on a show for Duanmu Quebec. I reached out and pushed Yu Xian's shoulder. Although I didn't use much strength, Yu Xian pretended to take 2 steps back and fell to the ground. As we expected, Duanmu Kei immediately woke up. He clearly saw me push Yu Xian. He jumped up from the bed and quickly ran to Yu Xian's side to help her up. Duanmu K waited for me to say, "What are you doing?" I looked at Duanmu Quebec. Yu Xian gave me a look. I understood what she meant. I looked at Duanmu K and said, "You said I moved fast, but you moved fast too. You slept with Yu Xian so quickly. Very good. Since you already have someone next, don't pretend to be sincere and talk about getting married again. I've had enough of your one-sided behavior." Yu Xian lay in Duanmu K's arms. She pretended to rub her eyes and said in a low voice, "Duanmu, Gij, what's going on? Yesterday, you wanted to stay at my place. How did I become your next house? It's not like that." Chapter 139. Duanmu K looked at Yu Xian and comforted her. "Don't cry. Are you all right?" Looking at how Duanmu K was taking care of Yu Xian, I stood at the door and sneered. I looked at Duanmu K and said, "I remember you once told me that you were a cold and cruel person. But I didn't expect that it wasn't that you weren't gentle. It was just that you weren't gentle to me. Aren't you being nice to Yu Xian? You're a man who doesn't mean what he says." Duanmu K carried Yu Xian and put her on the bed. Yu Xian was still crying and tightly clutching Duanmu K's arm. After Duanmu K settled Yu Xian down, he walked towards me. He pulled my arm and pulled me out of Yu Xian's room. We walked to the corridor on the second floor. I shook off Duanmu K's hand and glared at Duanmu Quebec. "Did I say something wrong? You're the one who did something wrong. Why are you acting like I'm the one who did something wrong?" Duanmu K looked at me and said softly, "Keep your voice down. Is it appropriate to let everyone know about this? Do you want my reputation to be tarnished, or do you want us both to be taught a lesson? Only then will you be happy." I looked at Duanmu K and sneered. "That's enough. You once said that before we got divorced, we were still husband and wife. But what did you do? Han Hao only proposed to me and took care of me. He only stayed by my side and showed me his attitude. But what about you? What did you do? You slept with Yu Xian. What else do you want me to say? Don't think about the divorce anymore. I've made up my mind. We have to get divorced." Duanmu K walked in front of me. He glared at me and said, "Cold glaze, don't go too far. I'm talking to you calmly. You'd better not go too far." I looked at Duanmu K and said, "I'm going too far? I'm going too far? Duanmu K, you've said everything good and bad. You're really talented. I really didn't expect you to be such a person." I didn't give Duanmu K a way out. Even though I knew Duanmu K would probably flip out, I still had to say those words. Duanmu K reached out and lifted my cheek. I reached out and grabbed his arm, struggling with all my strength. Duanmu K shouted at me, "I told you, don't go too far." Duanmu K swung his arm and slapped me across the face. The sound of the slap attracted everyone in the house. I fell and sat down in the hallway. Duanmu K stood in front of me. He probably didn't expect that he would lose control of himself. Xiao Fengya and Duanmu Tochio came upstairs. As they walked, Xiao Fengya said, "What's going on? It's so noisy this early in the morning." Xiao Fengya saw me lying on the floor, covering my face and glaring fiercely at Duanmu Quebec. She immediately understood. She hurried to my side and helped me up. She looked at Duanmu K and said, "K, what's wrong with you?" Because he had just come out of Yu Xian's bedroom, his upper body was still bare. Yu Xian also came out of her own bedroom. She leaned against the door and pretended to look at us pitifully. Duanmu K looked at Xiao Fengya and said, "Mom, it's nothing. You and Dad should go downstairs and eat." Xiao Fengya's sharp eyes saw Yu Xian lying at the door with her clothes disheveled. Then she looked at Duanmu Quebec. She immediately understood what was going on. Her expression became very serious. She walked in front of Yu Xian and asked, "Xin, what's going on?" Uxin looked at Duanmu Quebec. Xiao Fengya said seriously, hurry up and tell me. What's going on? Uxin looked at Xiao Fengya and said softly, Auntie, nothing happened. Xiao Fengya saw Uxin's flickering eyes. She grabbed Uxin's shoulder and said sternly, hurry up and tell me. What's going on? Uxin trembled in fear. She looked at Xiao Fengya and said, yesterday, Duanmu Gij and I went to a nightclub to play. Duanmu Gij drank a lot. When we came back, I wanted to send him back to his bedroom, but Duanmu Gij didn't want to. He insisted on going to my room. I couldn't refuse, so I brought Duanmu Gij to my room. Then Duanmu Gij hugged me in his arms and said he loved me, and then. Uxin blushed and lowered her head. Uxin's words were heard by everyone present. When Duanmu Tochio heard it, he slapped Duanmu K in the face. Duanmu K was stunned for a moment. Then he turned to look at Duanmu Tochio and said, Dad, I can bear the consequences of my own actions. Why did you have to hit me? Duanmu Tochio pointed at Duanmu K and said, you really made me lose face. You really made the Kurosawa lose face. The great young master of the Duanmu family is actually a scumbag who cheats on his wife and beats her. You really disappoint me. I walked in front of Duanmu Tochio and looked at him as I said, Dad, don't be angry. It's not good for your health if you get angry. I've already decided to divorce Duanmu Quebec. It's only right for him to find another family for himself. His mistake was that he shouldn't have had a relationship with you Xin while they were still married. No matter what, the divorce is in 5 days. If it really doesn't work, then we can just bring it forward. I don't know how to stay in this family anymore. Xiao Fengya turned around and looked at me. She walked in front of me and held my hand as she softly said, Xiao Li, Xiao Ke really went too far. Can you give him a chance? You know that your dad and I don't approve of your divorce. I also know that no one can accept this kind of thing. No matter what, I hope you can endure it for a while, okay? I looked at Duanmu K and then smiled at Xiao Fengya. Mom, I know. I'm not in a good mood either. Maybe my tone was too harsh just now and I didn't consider your and Dad's feelings. I'm sorry, don't take it to heart. Xiao Fengya held my hand and gently patted my shoulder. We understand. Don't worry, we understand. You should go to Xinyao's room and rest for a while. I think this morning has affected your body again. Xiao Fengya turned around and looked at Xinyao. Yao Yao, help your sister-in-law back to your room and rest for a while. Xinyao stood there with her fists clenched. She angrily looked at Uxin and said loudly, I've endured it for so long and I haven't said a single word. Uxin, you bitch. Is it your second nature to seduce men? What's the point of sleeping with other people? How can you be so shameless? Hurry up and get out of here. The Duanmu family won't let a bad woman like you stay. Duanmu Tochio turned around and glared at Xinyao. Yao Yao, you can't speak like that. It was clearly your brother who was in the wrong first. You can't say that. Hurry up and take your sister-in-law back to rest. Your mother and I will take care of your brother. Chapter 140. Xinyao walked over and grabbed my arm. Sister-in-law, are you okay? I have some medicine in my room. I'll apply it to the wounds on your face. I guarantee you won't be able to see anything the next day, just like normal. Xinyao turned around and glared at Uxin. What a slut. Then Xinyao pulled my arm and walked back to her bedroom. When we got back to the bedroom, Xinyao closed the door and stomped her feet in anger. She looked at me and said, Sister-in-law, how can you tolerate this? Uxin, that slut, is really out of control. She actually seduced my brother and slept with her. My brother used to be able to quibble, but now? He directly admitted it. It makes me so angry. I really don't want to stay here anymore. Sister-in-law, hurry up and get a divorce. Once you're done, I'll leave home with you. I want to live at Uncle Lang's house and become his daughter. Looking at Xinyao's angry expression, I smiled and said, "Don't be my father's daughter. I've already annoyed him enough. If you come again, the two of us will probably annoy him to the point of disorientation." "Sister-in-law, you're still in the mood to joke around? I'm really angry. Don't bully me anymore." Xinyao pouted and walked over to the dressing table. Rummaging through the drawers, she found a small box and said happily, "Found it. This is the best. Sister-in-law, I'll apply it for you." Xinyao walked in front of me and began to treat my wound. She said angrily, "Sister-in-law, I really don't understand how my brother changed so much. In the past, when I saw the two of you happily together, I was so envious. I also wanted to find a man who was especially good to me, like you and my brother. But when I found one, my brother and sister-in-law are going to divorce. I never thought that my sister-in-law was bad, nor did I think that she did anything wrong, but my brother really changed. I don't like him anymore." I raised my head and looked at Xinyao. "If I told you that everything that happened today was caused by me, would you hate me?" Xinyao stopped what she was doing and looked at me. "Sister-in-law, what do you mean by that?" I held Xinyao's hand and said, "I'll tell you the truth. I've already decided to divorce the Duanmu K, but the Duanmu K has already wavered. In order to make him stick to his original idea, I reached an agreement with you Xin. As long as we can get a normal divorce, I won't mind if she seduces the Duanmu K or does anything to him." "Good heavens, sister-in-law, why did you do that? Could it be that you really don't love the Duanmu K anymore?" Xinyao looked at me in disbelief. I looked at Xinyao and said, "I love him. Just like Suri said, I might love him even more than the Duanmu Quebec. I'm afraid that I can't control myself. I'm afraid that the deeper I love him, the deeper he will hurt me. He doesn't love me anymore. He even threatened me that if I don't remarry him, he will make a move on the people around me, including you. He even dared to make a move on his own sister. What else can I do? I'm really scared. I'm not afraid of what he will do to me, I'm scared that he will hurt the people around me. Of course I know that what I'm doing is wrong, but divorce is the best ending." Xinyao looked at me with wide eyes. She couldn't believe it at all. She looked at me and said, "Sister-in-law, is that really the case? I really can't believe it. My brother has already become like this. I don't know what to do. But sister-in-law, is it really okay to let you Xian seduce my brother so unscrupulously?" I pulled Xinyao's hand and said, "I know there's no other way. I don't hate your brother, I just feel that our fate has come to an end. We shouldn't be entangled with each other anymore. I also want to be together with the Duanmu K, but he doesn't want to be with me anymore. What can I do? Yu Xian's feelings for him are true, and she will definitely be good to the Duanmu Quebec. There's nothing to worry about. After a long time, he will forget about me." Xinyao sighed and looked at me. "No matter what, I hope that this matter can be resolved peacefully in the end. I'm fine with it. The main thing is that I feel that you and my brother are both unwilling to divorce. It would be great if my brother could recover his memories. Then he would remember you and everything. Then he wouldn't complain about divorce anymore." I pulled Xinyao and said, "It doesn't matter. Let's just take one step at a time. Everything will be in the past. Today's weather is pretty good. How about we go shopping?" I reached for the mirror and looked at myself. Xinyao's makeup skills are really good. Now I can't even see any wounds. Let's go. Let's go shopping. You can accompany me to relax." Xinyao shook her head and looked at me. "All right, I really can't do anything about you. Let's go shopping at the Central Plaza. I heard that there are new products coming out. It just so happens that a few of my designs are going to be on the shelves. You can go take a look. If there's something you like, I'll bring it to you." I stroked Xinyao's hair and nodded with a smile. Xinyao and I tidied up a bit. Then we walked out of the bedroom and headed to the living room. We bumped into Duanmu Tochio and Xiao Fengya. Xiao Fengya took my hand and looked at my wounds. "It looks like your wounds are a bit better. Where are you and Yao Yao going? I looked at Xiao Fengya and said, Mom, the weather is pretty good today. I want to go shopping at the Central Plaza with Xinyao and buy some things we like. Xiao Fengya turned her head and glanced at Duanmu Lixiong, then looked at me as she took out a bank card from her handbag and stuffed it into my hand. I didn't understand what she meant, so I looked at her and asked, Mom? What's the meaning of this? Xiao Fengya patted my hand and said, Aren't you going shopping? You don't usually like to spend money. Since you're in the mood to go shopping today, Mom and Dad prepared this for you. Spend as much as you want. Buy whatever you want. There's definitely enough money inside. I turned to Xiao Fengya and said, Mom, there's no need. I brought money. You and Dad can keep it. Before Xiao Fengya could say anything, Xinyao walked up to us and snatched the bank card. She walked towards the door and said, Sister-in-law, come quickly. Mom told you to take it, so take it. If you don't take it, I'll spend it for you. I helplessly looked at Xiao Fengya and smiled. Mom, I really don't know what to do with Xinyao. You and Dad, don't be angry. I'll deal with her later. Xiao Fengya smiled and looked at me. She's just like a child. Your dad and I are used to it. Hurry up and go. I said goodbye to her and Duanmu Tachio and ran after Xinyao. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.